is going to work for anyone that actually, using it as the model. So it's not need to be comparing. And on the case of the president, I think what he's saying is, let's say, okay, the Fubara is not fully aware about its rights, let's assume. But what of the expected empowered checkmaker that's supposed to be checkmating the activities of the executive, the National Assembly?
No, you are talking about process.
The National Assembly.
That's what I'm interested in. So what
and they fail to do what is expected to them to do.
That goes back to institutions.
So that is the function. That is exactly what
institutions.
So please go ahead.
Corruption, political violence, electoral malpractice. We don't have judicial independence anymore. That is so. If we had judicial independence, we know that okay, the process can work. But the process that we're supposed to use, to elect free and fairly, is no longer working.
Because I think it boils down to the fact that there's something we are all missing now. He said something about we don't know. So there's nothing like we don't know. I'm going to go into it. So Fibora could apparently contest it. But there's also a possibility that they'll tell him, if you fight Jagaban, you are gone. Nah. So we also need to be, I don't think we should even sugarcoat anything, because that's the reality, right? And it is like, do you have the power? Do you have the money? Do you have the experience? Do you have people that will back you up to fight the president? So if you don't have that, won't you just stay on your lane? If you realize that after that, I think a month or two thereabouts, he went to see the president. All we saw on media was the pictures of him going into the house, meeting with the president. Was there any detailed conversation about what they had? Nothing.
Why didn't he do a press conference after that? That is on him. Who is managing his press?
That's what we are saying. We don't know what happened.
That's a danger you're pointing. We are moving from democracy to autocracy.
I agree with you.
Because when you are saying someone challenge your rights, and you begin to afraid that, if I ask for justice, I won't get it. Yes. That's not democracy anymore.
Exactly, that's my
democracy
point.
Allow me that if you violate my human rights, I can challenge you.
But it doesn't even happen.
I can go to the court.
This morning about the social activist guy.
Yeah, that Diata. I also read it, and I'm pained.
This guy has and it's not even just someone that should have died. For every time I was getting you on Twitter, I was always seeing the post.
Yeah, it's still unconfirmed. I think it's someone that raised that issue. So
no, that's because I think there was a 10 million naira bounty on him to whoever gets the right information about the guy, and only for us to find out that he's late. Right? So how do we now then, if democracy promises freedom of speech, right? Freedom of press, I can, challenge a sitting governor if you're doing something wrong. But we now come to the consciousness of if you say a word,
you are not to undo, leave your phone and undo the cameras. Who are talking, you focus on somebody else. What is wrong now?
Where is he? Release him. And we just focus and we are saying he's there.
Leave him out, let him handle it. Do your own code, make sure you are recording everything. If you cannot, what's the point? Why you, someone is talking, somebody else is doing, why don't happen?
I heard we're going to do this. How many people will want to step
follow the conversation so that you can have the right, and you follow the thing. What is happening?
Please don't go. You are the only male child I have. You are the only female child I have. Right? Then how are we going to start?
Forget about it. Do at this point you started something. Do whatever the fuck you want to do and focus. Make sure that you have the right frame on time. You are doing the right thing.
You mentioned they are just serve as a threat to the democracy.
They are big threats,
and that's why we are having this conversation. And that is why I want to actually disregard one of these points that is always on the process, not what the outcome is going to be. We begin to have this kind of program.
Yes.
So
you focus on the process.
I think you should rule a law over.
Yeah, one day.
It only takes somebody that is God-fearing to say that, see, come towards me, I will do the right thing. But for this, like the country we are right now, it is a situation of this person elects me into power. This person gave me and I can't go against it.
One day the president can wake up and suspend the CGN of the
Thank you. So
CGN. What will you say? We will still say
before
process.
You know, they'll bring a file out that say you were corrupt. Something happened and we might have to do
anything.
That's
because you were
boiled down to building a strong institution.
Exactly my point.
When we have strong institutions,
let's come back. Let's come back from the point of view like slightly we're now outside of what we already know, which is basically, let's take a step back. We understand that at one end, democracy is about the process and what the president didn't do, whatever, and this is why it's very timely that nobody's talking about it. And that when you begin to think about democracy as a process, then you begin to realize where is the failures coming from. Why is this guy not able to use the institution? So, okay, we have a federalism that gives so much power and so much control to the president that is really where they. But process, if you don't look at it from a very clear, with crystal focus on the process, you will not see how much. Why is the legislature not talking? Why is the state legislature not talking? Why is all of this? Why is all the process and the instrumentation of what enables democracy not going on? And that tells you about the process of democracy, which is what we are talking about. What's the promise? The promise for me remains the process. You must think about the process. And it's only when you think about the process, you begin to understand that one of the reasons why we have been so much left behind and disappointed for so long, and why the country has not been able to maximize the promise, which is the potential benefit that comes from a democratic government, is that lack of that process. You have a process whereby everybody just think about start and finish. Election, become a leader. To the point where another equally elected individual in a federal government, we are federalism, and then the president has the right, in the name of certain things, and remove another president and say he's suspending them. First and foremost, he doesn't. I do not understand why the National Assembly is still existing, is even sitting. So, but process. So now,
I think we are on the same page.
No, we are on the same page, but think about it about the process. But why are they swinging? We all know the answer. Lolade answered that question before about the problem, about the reason why the National Assembly cannot, because everybody knows that if you
you'll not come back.
You are gone.
You're talking about people that was in a gathering like this, a town hall meeting, and an ex, I don't know what I'll call, maybe ex-honorable member said he has never held a constitution. He doesn't even know what the constitution is. So when he was in the house and needed to do something. I'm saying somebody that was elected.
Representation.
In the house.
Process.
So if you're saying that,
process and the outcome.
Expect from someone like that in the house to give to he has
process
never
and the outcome. And that's why we need to be clear, as much as we are clear about the process, we need to be clear about what the outcome is going to be.
But I think what Ola is saying is right about the process. If we can amend some of these our laws, people that can represent us, if we can tighten it a bit.
If you have money, you go.
No, I know. That goes back to the process.
What's now the work of the process of
becoming a lawmaker? What qualifies you to be a lawmaker? Because if you have money, you buy the party form, you find elections.
That's
you are there.
It's a law, and so, that's refers us back to the reason why we need more active citizens.
No, I think why I wanted to start the conversation. So now let's step down a little bit and think about if we are all on the same page to understand that if the process, if we can be crystal focused on the process, we will see everything that is wrong with Nigeria democracy is a process problem. If we can understand why the process of the promise of democracy is the process, is that I can only guarantee you what? Institutions, an INEC that will conduct election. Whether that INEC will not be compromised is not democracy. Let us demand the process. See, that's why the civil society, that's independent media. Hold them accountable. If you have proof that INEC is compromised, publish it, do investigative journalism, expose them out. Because at that point, that's the only time where they will not be able to do anything about it. Democracy is about what? Let's think about the characteristics of democratic governments now. We're talking about independent media. We're talking about the legislature that's separation of power. So is there separation of power? If the whole national assembly is quiet when a president is becoming more autocratic and democratic and everybody accepts it, process. Right? Because the promise of democracy is that there will be what? A legislature who has co-governing power. Is our legislator co-governing or secondary?
Rubber stamp
Problem. And if we have these are the kind of things that will begin. I have thought and heard about it, maybe also because I have done research in my book to think about this very well. That's why Nigeria's democratic problem is if we can begin to beam our torch like this, the process of democracy within the context of the promise of it, that it is not about, because we get lost. What happens most of the time is that we get lost in the argument about quality leadership. We get lost, and then everything is about what, and they allow us to do that because they want you to think more about outcome, so that we cannot think about the process. So we're not able to challenge them. Do you think that if immediately after Buhari was removed, all of us, civil society, everybody is shouting and saying, legislature, do something, act, do something. Anybody, it would have been a different outcome.
Exactly.
But they make us think about what? Outcome. So that we cannot question the process. Look at some of the times that government has taken a U-turn. Let me give a good example. I cannot remember.
The recent compulsory voting right.
No, I will not. Yeah, that one. No, that one is still yes, that's still a process because some of those.
Yeah, they take the U-turn because if we keep quiet, they will have go with it. And
there are a lot of laws a lot of bills that have actually died at the altar of effort because of civil society and people shouting on the internet. But let me. I am particularly interested in it because I remember very well that in what was it called in 2012. Hi, Olalekan Osunkoya. I was one of the people that led the subsidy protest in London to tell the GEJ that it's wrong, subsidy is not right, and all of that. And then what happened? The subsidy effort was abandoned. They increased a few part of it, and they moved on from that. Then fast forward into several years later, we have a government that removes subsidy and in a manner and a way whereby it's even so crazy that does not make things and nobody and not even a single even me my life
so
like this.
Why did you go back to London and do your
process? But we have seen it. Our leaders are very smart. They know that if they allow us to think about process, accountability will exist. Sure. But they will end up to think about, it doesn't matter whether the same people that were angry about subsidy before now begin, because now they're in a position of benefit to the government and now thinking that, it doesn't matter, it's what they do with the subsidy that matter. It's a outcome. Until we begin to abandon, and my problem is not whether or not Tinubu is a good leader. I don't care. My interest is that is Tinubu a Nigerian president elected? Yes. And is it every single decision that he's making and every single action that he's taking, does it conform to the process of democracy? If he can allow that, let him sell Nigeria for 10 naira, it's not my problem.
But name the country. But
I don't know, that's the point. So if that is exactly why we have to start thinking, when you think about, we cannot think about the challenges that we are having. It's the narrative of what democracy means. That's the point I'm missing. That's why we are missing it. The narrative that our leaders want us to understand is that being it all about what? Outcome. Think only about whether I'm a good leader or what you can benefit and what your people are. Who is the leader? Is it Yoruba? Is it Igbo? Is it Hausa? That is why year for 20 years now we've had an Hausa president. We have an Igbo. We've done everything. No, look at the election time. Doing Obi. It's about Obi. Nobody is talking about process. Nobody cares about. And why, for example, why did Obi or why is opposition dying in Nigeria? Process. Because everybody is selfish. Everybody's only. So if you can be, they know that if you start to think about our role, and that is why civil society, as far as we are and as much as we are doing, how much can we do? Everybody must. The moment I start taking position as whether or not I prefer an Obi or I prefer a Tinubu or I prefer an Atiku, I'm already compromised because I'm already thinking about outcome. But process is about, can I think about, is the election well conducted? Are we compromised now? Are they rigging the election? Is the will of the people at all the parameters that needs to happening for us to assume that this election is acceptable to Nigerians? And then only and done, we can now come back and say that, okay, maybe because there's no way. That is why, no matter how well intentioned me and you are, if we're not part of the political cabal that has seized this country, we will never, Chancellor, I cannot win. No matter how brilliant I am. So my ideas does not count. My opinion does not count. Back to process. They give us the tokenism of the process once in a while when election comes. But after election is over, they disregard the process and focus on outcomes and start to do so. And so that is why we must take a step back. So, and go on, please.
Okay, so don't you also think that it comes from a place of information, right? So I feel if citizens are empowered with the right information to start with, you will know how to do the right thing. I know that civil society does their best. We have the likes of code, follow the money and the likes. Yeah. But how many people are, but how many of them? I was at the community one day and I saw a customized shirt that says free, what was the former CBN governor? Emefiele. And I'm like, how? But because these people are not informed, they don't know the right thing. They don't know why the government is even fighting Emefiele in the first place. But as far as I can do a customized shirt, and I'm being funded, and I can tell all of you in your community, or the youth, or the women in the community, let's go to National Assembly, or let's go to Eagle Square, or whatever, and everyone is going out there. But can we all sit back and say, okay, how many communities do we want to go to? What are the right information are we going to give to these people? People don't even know there's something called freedom of information, how to even start with. I don't even know that I can hold my local government chairman responsible or accountable. People will think it's an opportunity to go and meet chairman. No, some don't even know who their local government chairman is to start with. So how are we going to hold the right set of people accountable? And like I was also, it still all boils back to information. I don't know it. I don't know I can hold my local government chairman accountable. So why should I ask questions? I don't know that, during election, I was campaigning during, did advocacy or empowerment before the election. People don't even know that they were going to be using beavers. They don't even know there was a certain, it is not the normal you go to print and they don't even know anymore, right? And you expect those set of people to give you the right votes? It's not possible. And you even see those, because I also monitored the election during the last election. They hear things like even the officials that were meant to, handle they don't even know. Some said as at 10 p.m. the night before, they were just giving orientation. So tell me, how do you have a credible election results?
So now I'm interested in the line of in the line of contribution that you're making, because that now I want to speak because those conversations are speaking to the process that we're talking about, which is allowing us to think about it, about why are we so disconnected that we don't want to participate in the election. Do you know that no matter how, let me tell you one of the my theory. I stand to be corrected, but one of the biggest theories that I believe can make Nigeria work in a different way is what almost happened in the last election, but that couldn't happen, but it almost is to hold the political elite unexpected. Because they are predictable. Nigerian political leaders are predictable. All they do is what? The only game they know how to play is what? Steal money for 4 years, take half of that money, empower themselves, empower their families, and take the other half to go and rig election so that they can continue to steal. So what do you do? And if you are going to rig an election, it means that you have an idea of how to predict the outcome of the election, meaning that you already know that, okay, these are the places I'm going to just go and, first and foremost, the rigging starts from how much you pay to get the party tickets. And after getting the party ticket of the major party, after you have bribed all the people, to collect the party ticket, and you have done all the primaries, you now go to general election, and you have to now bribe other people, 2 biggest or 3 biggest political, which what happened with Labour Party in the last election, whereby they were what? The success of the party came out of unexpected because the government made assumptions, the leaders, the political elite made assumptions about what they need to do to win the election. And then what happened afterwards? They were disappointed because people actually did vote. But if in the number of people that decided to vote and collect money and vote a different party and do all those things were more, wouldn't the political elite would have been doing? That's exactly what we're talking about here, because we can predict them. We know what their game is very simple. The only thing they know how to do is what? Use money to buy election and to rig election. So give them a counter opposition. But why are people not interested in going to election? Why do you not have the most you can have? You know what? Nobody they created fear for us to think that you're going to die in election violence. They use economic power. Why was scarcity? We all know that it was a strategy. Economic power to make us think that I want to, because if we're human beings, we want to survive. We want to survive. So the natural thing about when there's a problem is what? Let me see how I can cope with my family and friends first. And if I can do that, I will not work. So everybody, so the lower the number of the voter turnout, the better it is they can control the narrative and all of that. And that's exactly the point. So which comes back again to the point that how are we not interested in participating the way we are supposed to participate? And that is why all the policies of government are intentionally designed to make the most amount of people poorer. Don't even think about it. The poorer we are, the better they lead, the better they have an edge. They have more money, and we have less money, and because we are so much impoverished and so much looking for how to survive, we are in that survival mode. We are disinterested in what is happening because we are what? And that's exactly the point. So that is why it's a very simple process. So I think for me again, the other question is about thinking about the general idea that if we agree that the process is the problem, and we agree that the way things are is really about how we think and the narrative that we did, and why is that so, and what can we do differently? Any ideas?
Can I come in? Okay, so I like the part that you said if there's a way we can, take these people unaware. So I'm not going to be very explicit. I was in a gathering, an African gathering one time, and we were having like a conversation like this. And a woman said something. She's one of the like powerful women in our country. It's an African country. She said something. She said how she got closer to power, or how they have their current president, was because civil society were having meetings for it. Just like I said, it's a process. For years, they watched the current president do their usual thing, but then they all sat back. They had loopholes. Speak from political parties, people that they could trust. They also an oath and signed NDA, like this thing must not go out. It is so everybody was working. And guess what? When they were ready to launch, they overthrew that president. But it didn't take them like 4 years. It didn't take them like 8 years. She said they are almost like 10 years, like a longer time. But what were they doing for those period of years?
Planning.
They were watching, they were planning. Like, okay, this is just like he said, they are predictable. You know what they can do, you know what they wouldn't do, you know how to get across them. They used that against them. And when the election came in, they were surprised because it felt like it is business as usual. We will go in there, this is the normal thing we do. But they were strategized, like they will do it this way, this is how we'll come in. If they come this way, this is how we'll come in. And that was how they got, overthrown. And just like I said, I felt like, of course, Labour Party were gaining the momentum that felt like we were also going through the same process. But I think we had more of noise than impact.
So which brings us to the point of the concept of opposition power and how mobilization, this whole cross-cultural, cross-sectional approach to actually think about, are we actually thinking about our democracy with the common man in mind? Or are we just only thinking about, let me just do this and that? Because it's this tokenism. That's why, for me, that thing is important. Because everybody just want to talk and make it look until they find their own spot. And once they find their own spot, they stop talking. So you're about to say something.
I want to start from the first point you made about the power of information, and also I will quickly raise that that's one of the duties of civil society, ensuring that the citizens they are aware of their rights, they are aware of their civic responsibility and duties. So is that?
What of NOA?
Yes, of course. It's also from the effort from the government and the civil society can do that, and we need to continue to do that. We have been doing that actually. That's part of our work. But one thing that I would like to talk on is about the mode of the politician, getting money, give to who are they giving this money to? They are the people like me and you. So it's about what can we do, maybe probably let these people know the right thing to do and get to them before the politician get to them. The politician, since last year, they have been planning. As a matter of fact, immediately after the first election, they begin to plan for the next election. And the civil society and the citizen will wait until maybe probably a year to the election and mobilize people to exercise their right. Where is the strategies? Where is the plan? Where are they having it? How can we establish something like that? How can we work together? The issue of, people want them to be seeing me. A lot of people is about my organization. We don't think about the work of the civil society. That's why it's different from the business. Your own is to be able to ensure that first, citizens, they know their rights. Second, we have peace and order. And third, holding leaders accountable. But we begin to think of, how many times that we have all the NGO in a place like this discussing on the next elections. It's a challenge to us, and it's something that we need to do something about. Except, I don't even want to go on the side of the movement of OB and all that, But if we can leverage on this, it's a very good way for us to go. And it's giving assurance that we have a lot of young people, most especially, that are ready for change. Because the movement, the OB movement, it's prompt from the NSAS movement, with about demanding for accountability, just want the change to happen. But unfortunately, there are some way that I think if they have civil society expert, they will be able to get it right. So I will go by, maybe this conversation can prompt that or spark that. After this, we can begin to look on how can we establish a coalition or a platform comprises all this, whether a big NGO or small NGO, as far as you are committed and you are passionate about making change on the platform and ensuring that it's based on trust, transparency, and accountable. Because in Nigeria, what I've witnessed is, if there are certain people making effort, from within them, among them, we still have some that will be jeopardizing that effort.
Absolutely.
And that is what.
Sorry.
Please.
This whole thing we are talking about, it's the circle won't change if, like you talk about the process, the process of appointing the chairman of INEC. How do we change all that process? If I appoint you the chairman of INEC, are you going to ruin the election for me? Of course not. So Nigerians don't trust the system. People don't come. Like me, it took me a long time before I started voting. People don't trust the process. Just leave them. Let them do what they want to do. That's what the average Nigerians will say. So we have to change the process of electioneering, the process of electing these umpires, the INEC chairman, and all of that. That will help.
Trust back.
Yeah, but
that will help strengthen the whole process.
So for me, I agree. So Nigeria, we have actually come a long way as a country, but we're actually so very basic as well. We think about 20 years, we think about 30, 40 years. I mean, we have only been 65 years now as a country. I mean, 65. This year we're coming 65. Yeah, it's not like we've been around for a long time as a country, and for the most of the part. So, but the point here is that if you think about, I don't think that whether or not most of this old concept, of course, number one, the concept of democracy, it's what? Alien to us. It's an Igbo thing. It's still part of the neo-colonization to tell us that, okay, I mean, even though we do practice traditional leadership and traditional ways of doing things long before that, but it's less democratic that way. It's still very democratic, but not as in a way that everybody is equal. Our society has always traditionally been designed in a way whereby there's layers of responsibility and there's hierarchy and there's commoners and there are elite. But then all of a sudden, the Igbo man came and said, no, everybody will be equal because anybody can run for election and become a leader. But without a recognition that, do we all have the same economic power? Do we all have the same social power? Do we have political power? The answer is no. But then they make us think that, oh, you can run for election, and that's the problem. I think that, why I was saying that is that if you think about I don't think the power that the president has to appoint the INEC chairman, to appoint judges, to do all of those things are not the problem, because we all know that he has that power. But why it becomes a problem is that, do you think that if Nigerians are able to do the hard work of naming and shaming and proving that the INEC chairman is corrupt, he will not be removed?
But they don't protect this.
Remove him.
Because nobody's interested in that. Nobody, because everybody is so.
Who has power to remove him?
And that is no, because the people that benefit in it, because we have created an ecosystem where the people that have the power to change anything are the people that benefit from everything. So why is the incentive to change anything? I remember 3 weeks ago, actually, we had a meeting to do something about something that is very, very disappointing in Nigeria. In Abuja, actually. The thing around, I don't know if you're all aware about how expensive rent is now.
Yeah.
Like everywhere you go in Abuja and everything is just like, oh, in the name of inflation, you cannot even rent anywhere. It's just crazy. And they are even asking you for 3 months, 3 years rent now. It's very, so we are trying to set up an advocacy group to actually spotlight that problem and think about a way to get the legislature to pass a bill around rent control and all those things. And guess what? I saw how much work has been done. They've even passed a bill in almost there is no National Assembly session that they have not considered long before it even became this bad. But why did these things die? Are you going to the legislator that just came from his state that could not wait to buy a house in Abuja and start a house and start collecting his own rent from his people? Is the person that you want to tell to stop collecting to do rent control? Why will it be beneficial to? Nobody's interested in that. All we can do is whine, which is also fine because that's also the beauty of democracy. And that's one thing I say when people pass judgment about how bad Nigeria is as a country, and I still have hope and I'm very happy because I think that the reason is that if you think about Nigeria, We might be slow, but we're way ahead of many other countries in Africa. We're a very matured country. We have a lot of trouble because that is why things are getting really bad. But then we do what? We adapt so easily. We're just surviving, and everybody just moves.
Yes.
So now to my last, maybe like last round of questions. But I wanted Toro to contribute to say, what do you think is the role of young people in all of this conversation? So as we have established, and it's looking like our leaders are very selfish, and they have kind of like captured us, and we are trying very hard, but we are not able to catch them, and we're just, all we can do is hope. How does that translate to the future of democracy in Nigeria? Is that perhaps suggesting that we are playing with fire to the point that these Gen Z, no qualms individuals will no longer do something different? Or are we going to wait and see that? What do you think? How is young people feeling about this? How is there, and I think any other person can contribute to this actually. Like, what's happening? How does this concern that we are raising, how does it fit into the potential of our continuous opportunity to keep democracy, to keep Nigeria democratic?
Okay, I think one of the major problems with the youths of now is the fact that we are ignorant and we don't want to stress, okay? We just want things to be easy, like we are taking things with levity. We don't understand the gravity of our inactions and our actions. So I think the bedrock of sustainable democracy now will be to cultivate ethical leadership and civic values in our education system, beyond just tech and different abilities and talents. These leadership values, they need to be endued and embedded in educational systems, beyond just books, but our understanding of our rights. And beyond understanding of rights, our understanding of how to contribute to our democratic future is something that youth has to take interest in. Because right now, the youth are not really interested. They just want, okay, what can I get from this? What can I get from this?
Okay,
I'm not going to totally agree with you and saying that most of the youth, they just want the free and soft life. It's not actually like that. We have patriotic citizens. We have the youth that are committed. Earlier today we celebrated 10 young people that are actually promoting the future of democracy in civic space outside Africa. And what we thought is, these young people, we have seen their work for over a couple of years, and they really stand firm on the work that they do, despite the fact that there's not that encouragement. And don't forget, there's a lack of trust in the system, but we keep moving. And why we are still celebrating democracy or sustaining to this level is because we see our patriotic young people that are still believe that, Nigeria is going to work. And that's why we are here. You are young people too, and you are here, you find your time to be here. And all that. So we have more young people that actually believe that, Nigeria is going to work and they are making efforts. And what I will encourage is, I think it is time for us to begin to look at how do we want to build trust in the system, to encourage more young people, and creating a mentorship platform that will serve as passing on the knowledge, and also just encourage the young people that are doing the work. So the role of the young people, like what you asked, first is to be aware of your right as a citizen of the country, of Nigeria rather. So what is my right, what is my duty? And accept that you have the responsibility to contribute to the nation. We don't need to keep waiting on what Nigeria is bringing to us, but think about, what can I do for my country? Couple of times I've had the opportunity of being in other countries, and I see how patriotic they are, especially when it's come to a national project and policy. So we need to continue with that momentum as a young people, thinking of what can you do. This is era of digital technology. The AI is moving faster, and I think last month we have a couple of young people coming together to launch an AI initiative. So these are the work of the young people, and most importantly, what you know, the idea you have, the knowledge you have, especially in terms of democracy governance. How can you pass that knowledge to others, especially the people at the grassroots, to have that knowledge? So it is duty of young people like me and you, it is our responsibility, because the people that actually fought for this democracy, they are also young. So for us to sustain it and be able to tell our younger one that, oh, I'm not just keep looking, I'm not folding my hand, so I also did it. Because I think when we are talking about the democracy, you mentioned about MK Abiola, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Tafawa Balewa, they can probably, if they are alive today, they can probably come on board and tell, oh, we are the one that fought for this. So as a young people, we also need to think in that direction. What am I going to say? Thank you.
Thank you. I really need to run this up so we can have the second panel soon. So I'll just ask. You've responded, so I'll ask literally one question. I'll ask also Jonathan another question. So Jonathan, you're a lawyer, so you are in the judiciary legal space. So what do you think, and how well do you think the Nigerian judiciary has enabled or contributed to? I don't know. I want to make a judgment. In terms of, do you think Nigerian judiciary is enabling democracy in Nigeria, or are they enabling the political power regime to continue to oppress Nigerians? Are they influencing in the current democratic situation positively, or are they just right in the middle of it, neither contributing? So I'm putting you right on the spot. So yeah, please.
You want them to disbar me?
I think one of the beautiful things about democracy is the right to freedom of speech.
Do you have those rights?
People go online and they still do.
Those are the things I've been saying since. The judiciary is one of the problems. I'm so sorry to say that. It's one of the problems. Since we started having this ex parte orders, people get midnight judgments. Politicians now take judges like a phone call away. So those kind of actions cannot encourage our democracy. It's a threat to our democracy. That's why I'll go back again, that we need strong institutions. How do I appoint these judges? What are the criteria? Where are they coming from? If you see all the politicians now, their wives are judges, this one's wife is there, that one's wife is there. So how that kind of person wants to give judgment against her own husband? How? So you can, even on the face of it, you can answer that question yourself.
Corruption is just too much.
I don't need to say much on it.
So no, you should be able to confidently, and I think
I've stated it clearly now. They are the problem.
They are enablers.
They are enablers.
In the positive and negative way, or in the positive way.
In the negative way, of course. I told you about these judgments. If you see the way people get judgments now, it's scary.
Is that bidder?
Me, I cannot even have issues. I'm a lawyer. I cannot even say go to court. If you can settle out of court through alternative dispute resolutions and other means, it's better.
And that's not the democracy.
During Buhari's government, when he was arresting most of the judges, I supported it. Although someone had to do something.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was getting too much.
But that was at the point, yeah. But also, the arrest was also corruption.
Yes, it is. But you saw the amount of money they saw with some of those judges.
No, I think that there is no way. It's a systemic.
They are enablers.
The problem is,
I think one of the major enablers to these politicians, if they know that this thing, if I go to court, I will not get my way, I'm sure they will change their approach. They'll do the right thing.
Absolutely.
So the judiciary should.
Thank you. Yeah. On another note, thank you for that feedback, and I think that's very true. The judiciary has no, and unfortunately we have. So I want to put it to you, Lola. Simply, I mean, it's not like you're part of the legislature, but you are in the way. You've contributed so much to think about, and you had a perfect case study of someone who couldn't, you haven't even seen the Nigerian constitution, but who is actively representing us. So do you think the legislature contributes to the quality? So they should have been the centerpiece of it, but for some really reason, I don't know, what's your opinion? Do you think that the legislature is contributing to the quality of the failure of our democratic institution and processes, or do you think that they are also an enabler in a negative way? Or take a moment to think about it.
I think they are an enabler. Okay, so I was discussing one of my boss one time, and I said something. I said, sir, is it very hard for political parties to give us the right candidates? like, is this something that is hard? And I put it to him because he's one of the political parties and, he has a say in the party. And we got talking more. Then I said, sir, but to be sincere, is it very hard? Like, is it very hard for you guys to do like the right screening, know the right person you're sending to the House to represent you, or who you're sending to the Senate to represent you? I don't think it's hard, right? So if everyone is doing it based on, this person has been contributing 100 million, to the party, this one is then go to the House, and that's why you see someone that can't move emotion.
A lot of them cannot even draft the bill, and they're not even comfortable to even if you draft the bill for them and allow them to sponsor it, they're not interested.
We were meeting when I met a guy. He said, he's one of those that works with the current House representative. And when I saw the report of the House, I knew they usually give them an award at the end of the year. And they said, the House of Representatives presented the best, report or bills or whatever in the House that year. I wasn't surprised. Why? Because the guy that writes everything that she presents in the House is someone from the civil society space, right? And he's also a alumni of School of Politics, Policy and Governance. But that's because this person is coming from a place of understanding. He already knew what was right. He already knew what we were facing before you got into this space. And that's why I keep telling people, if you have the right set of people around these people too, I think it's not just border. We already know the problem. The problem is we won't get the right leaders. We won't get the right person elected. Then what are we as youth? That's what I was going to say. What are we as youth also doing? I tell people, don't advocate from the outside. Try to be in the space, because you can't keep doing it from the outside. It's not going to work. How are you also ensuring that you are getting into the space? If you can't be in the room, can you be outside the room? Can you be at the corridor? One day, someone will leave the seat in the room, and the person will be standing or will be on his way out. You by the corridor will be allowed to come into the space. I've seen this happen over time. It's because we all keep going back. How much is politician going to pay me? I cannot work pro bono. But I've seen people that work pro bono and get their way in, and they're doing the right thing now. But it's because, just like you've said here today, everybody's thinking of when the government just came, what do we use? And there's this funny slang about that, let this government favor me and my family. So what happens to other people? So by the time we all start taking that selfish interest to say, these people are here to serve the people and not for us, I think we'll get it right. So, and we can't get it right if we don't have the right mindset to work with these people. And even those empowered to also have the right mindset. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do agree, but this is what I was hoping to hear, Lolade. I was just hoping to hear that in as much as our legislature will continue to be the greatest enabler of corruption in Nigeria. Padding budget with over almost $1 trillion in community concern, and nobody's challenging them constantly for homework. And then what are we talking about? We've given them not only, before, the general idea is that you will find someone who has made money outside of government and who will now sponsor somebody who has done well in community too. Now what is happening? They are coming themselves now because the equation now is money. Yeah. Because there are two ways. Money and power. Once you come into the power and you're part of that regime, you become insulated from the money you have stolen before, so that you don't get attacked by AFCC or government. And then on the other hand, you become insulated also with the potential to do what? To steal more. Because now you can do, everybody is quiet. The legislator is the biggest enabler of corruption in Nigeria. And then even they are coming next to judiciary, because judiciary, at least they will still sit in their court and wait for a case to come to them before they can corrupt. They are telling you that they are coming and saying that not even before. The legislator will go to ministry and be begging them for contact. Now they don't do whatever, bring it. They just insert and then insert their own constituency project in it and put numbers in there. And then every year on year. And it amazes me that nobody is talking about it enough. Everybody, because everybody, we're trying.
Check last year's budget. You see Boundary Commission empowering women and youths with soap making. How does that correlate? 100 million, and nobody's saying a word.
Nobody is talking about it.
What happened to the civil society in Nigeria?
That's the question.
So that brings us back to where we started from. A good way to close the session. The promise of democracy. You want to do something? Please go ahead.
I think some of these are civil societies. They are sponsored by
politicians.
Okay, politicians. So we cannot. They cannot.
So they can't talk.
No.
Because they are so quiet.
No, it's not all now.
Okay. Because it may not be enough. I know the budget foundation, they are doing work.
I when it comes to accounting and budget advocacy.
I follow the money.
Yes, and there's other
And the problem is that it's too small compared to the resources.
What we need is, building that platform that we are going to work together.
Well, I like your ambition, and I like your optimism, Yusuf. But unfortunately, I don't really think that can go far, because in as much as we operate in a system where it's all about me, posturing, what I can contribute, what I'm contributing, how I can benefit, it's really, really, really difficult for us to get people on board.
That's the
because
challenge.
Because even if you bring the coalition together, it's all about who leads it, who represents. Why did the NSAS fail? No leadership, no coordination, nothing. As long as there's and unfortunately, at the very heart of the concept of democracy is that need for what you're trying to say. We must find a way to collectively think about how we can. One other panel coming on board, so I think I'm going to have one of you. I mean, any of you that's volunteering to stay back, please. I know that Lola Day has to go, and yeah, it's really been interesting to have this, to share this platform with you today to talk about it. And for those that are probably watching online or people that are going to be listening to us later on, this is the first segment of the conversation. We have another panel coming up with other panelists to just contribute more. But we're still talking not other than the promise of democracy in Nigeria. How can we assess the future and the challenges as well as the opportunities for Nigerian democracy and what is happening here, and how can we as citizens contribute better? We've had really very interesting conversation all evening from these very four amazing individuals who have shared very deep insight about their opinion, about their ideas of what is happening in Nigeria and how Nigeria can do better and how we can deliver value better for us, for everyday Nigerians, and how our leaders are not. I think there's a collective assessment that as of today, if we're going to think about Nigeria and democracy and our leaders, the process is not working. Should I do a show of hands to say that, okay, who agrees with me on that?
Well, it's a work in progress.
Well, it's a work, and as much as we're saying that, we also know that there's a lot of opportunities as well in terms of how things can get better, because we are still Nigerians. We're together as a country. We are together as people. We have independent media. We have civil society. We have people, and so this institution might not be working at their best, but they are there. We can have elections every 4 years. We can hold our leaders accountable to a reasonable degree, not to the best we can, but at least they are still there. So democracy is still pretty much working and alive and getting there. And hopefully, over time, will become more and more comfortable too. So thank you very much for sharing this. And then we'll take a short break for 10 minutes, and then we'll come right back with new set of panelists to continue the conversation. Please stay with us, and thank you again for sharing your time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, okay.
My
Welcome back. My name is Olalekan Shimpaya. I'm still your host on Democracy Spotlight. Today is the 12th of June 2025, where we are celebrating in Nigeria Democracy Day. It's been a beautiful day. Just think about how far we have come as a country in this mode of governance called democracy. I've been spending the whole late afternoon or evening has been working in Nigeria. So we are continuing that conversation with new set of contributors and guest panelists to just talk about Nigeria and the promise of democracy, assessing the future of Nigeria, the opportunities and also the challenges that faces democracy in Nigeria, and how we can help all as individuals can contribute to improving the quality of our democracy and what is happening, and we can just look at what is happening around democracy and our roles as individuals and also as activists, and we have people who are playing different roles within the democratic ecosystem, and they're always supporting that to share their own judgment of looking back, checking out, and seeing how well Nigeria has fared and what is happening with our democracy. So thanks again for joining us. If you're watching us online, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. And if you're watching this later on, you're also welcome to share your thoughts and share your questions and your ideas around this conversation. We will also continue to have this conversation in the future as well. So thank you again, my panelists. So to get it started, we've had a very engaging conversation with the first set of panelists, and it's really interesting to see different perspectives. So I'm going to take this second half and look at it in a very different way. It's interesting the quality of the set of contributors as well. You come from a very different perspective from the first half, so it's also good to have a good balance in this conversation. So a good way to start is to just think about who are you or what do you do and what do you think about democracy? 20 years on in Nigeria, is it working? Is it not working? In a minute, just take a moment to reflect on what's your judgment. I'll start from my right.
Thank you very much. And I must say thank you. I'm also excited to see where this conversation leads to. So I'm Alex Adekunle James. I'm the Executive Director of RID Nigeria. It's a faith-based, democratic and policy and governance establishment or organization here in Nigeria, working to mobilize, transform Nigeria into a first-world nation. That's where I am. And that question, you said 1 minute. I don't know if justice can be done to that question in 1 minute. But I believe strongly in democracy as a system of government, even though I know that there is a wide gap, which maybe I'll talk more about as the conversation proceeds. I believe so much in democracy, and I believe that Nigeria so far, and the number of years that we've practiced democracy without interruption, has been, there's been good, bad, and ugly, but I think generally I can appraise it as progressive and developing, and to get a score mark from my point of view.
Thank you. Well, that's a good way. I think I find you're a good score, a good way to start that. I don't know if I agree. Hey, what do you think?
Okay. Thank you for having me, Ola, and everybody. I'm Ofoyeke Omole, the Executive Director of TriBridge Initiative. We work with young people around the area of tech, on entrepreneurship, and then generally on employment. Now to your question, democracy in Nigeria. I think we're practicing pseudo-democracy. That's what I can say right now. Are we going to get to that stage where we are actually practicing democracy? Maybe. There are possibilities. But right now, from when we started without interruption, like you said, we're not quite there. We are mirroring it, but we're not actually, just yet practicing democracy in the real sense of it. So, again, as we continue in the conversation, I'm sure that we'll have different perspectives to this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Very well. Okay. Adedej.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Democracy Day to us, Nigerians. My name is Adedej Adeyemi. I happen to be the state chairman for Young Progressive Party, Oyo State. I also function as the State Organizing Secretary, Inter-Party Advisory Council. And IPAC, or your state, happens to be an umbrella body for all the political parties in Nigeria. And the work they do as a body is to oversee the activities of political parties during and after elections, and see how they come together as a committee of active players in the democratic ecosystem of Nigeria, and how they can actually work together in ensuring that we have a continuous and a sustained democracy in Nigeria. For me, democracy in Nigeria, as for one, comes to stay, if you ask me. The perspective that I'm speaking today definitely has a lot to do with someone who has witnessed the 1993 election and the general reaction to the cancellation of the June 12 results. And also, I will also be speaking from someone who has witnessed the process that actually started the 1999 elections, because I, for one, in the process, and from then till now, if you ask me, have we gone, how far have we gone? I would say in taking the basic step, ensuring that we practice what is called true democracy. I think we've gone strength to strength in certain areas. There are areas that we have big shortcomings in terms of the trust we've been able to build amongst the Nigerian population. In terms of the trust we've been able to build with the quality of leadership we've been able to probably elect at one time or the other. But overall, if you look at the process, look at the involvement of the institutions that are involved, look at the electoral reforms that have been put in place at one time or the other, you will see that the experiences we had from 1999 to 2003 till date have always been a different experience entirely. And for me, the observation I've made is that every election has its own dynamics. And it's after what I've been able to observe from 1999 till date, I've noticed that there have been, at least, if I'm counting it, more than 3 electoral reforms that have been initiated. And all the reforms were actually initiated in order to address the shortcomings of previous elections that we've had. So, in other words, we've had improvements in certain areas, but there we still have a long way to go. I know in the course of the conversation, I was able to probably shed more light to what my perspectives, my own opinion as an active player in the system is. So thank you.
Thank you, Deji, for that submission and for confirming that. I think there's no doubt about it. I mean, we have a very interesting story as a government, as the form of governance that we have adopted as a country, which is democracy, as transition. It's changed, and I do agree with you on the idea that with each dispensation, there has been a lot of changes, and it comes with its own advantage. And I mean, at the time where the season, we've gone through different seasons. Thinking about deepening democracy, I'm thinking about the promise of democracy, but I think ultimately it is just a function of reassessing the opportunity that exists and then the shortcomings that is there and how that, and that's why we're having this conversation this afternoon. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'm serving my second term, so I don't know you, but I still need to introduce myself actually. So thank you for re-electing me to the position. So my name is Yusuf Leada-Bioto, and I'm the Chief Executive of iLead Africa, a civic tech organization that leverages digital technology to empower young people and marginalized community. We promote citizen participation in democratic processes of governance, empowering citizens to know the rights on holding their leaders accountable, making government to be more open and transparent. So democracy at this this stage that we have as a nation, I would say is both beauty and a burden to us. Beauty in the sense that we may not get it right, but at least it's better than what we have seen in the past, and as a burden because we are not where we're supposed to be, or there are some certain people that are not, fulfill their responsibility as a duty as both political leader and citizen. And I think having a conversation like this is so important because that's where we spark the change that we all want, and we need to keep making efforts, especially as young people, coming up with a very interesting and forward-thinking conversation that will drive policy change, empowering people to hold their leaders accountable, ensuring that we have a strong institution, and all this will contribute to how we are going to make, or how the democracy is going to be work for everyone, and everyone going to be beneficiary of the democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yusuf. And I do agree with you again. I mean, it's all about that collective responsibility that we all have as individuals, as collective, and as country, to basically know that it's not because we're here because we have the best common government. And that's what I think about when we're thinking about the topic of this conversation, is the promise, is a process. It's like ongoing, we're not there yet, but we know, we are aware of the shortcomings that we can fix, but we are also aware of how much we have come and how helpful this form of government has worked for us. But again, for me, it's about having this honest conversation, being tactical, being authentic, being critical of the mistakes that we're making, the shortcomings that we're having, and then but being also while remaining hopeful of the potential of what's possible within that context. And I think that's a good way to begin to just think about how I started the conversation the last time. Just think about the promise of democracy for me is thinking about the idea that it's a journey, it's an aspiration, and it's something that just an aspiration that's only limited to the concept of process. So what's democracy? What does it mean to you? How do you, when you think about the word democracy, as somebody who has worked in the space of social impact and who's working, when somebody's talking about, if you're explaining democracy to anyone, how do you explain it? What does it mean? Is it the classic dictionary definition around representation, participation, involvement, standing for election, institution, all those? I mean, those things are very, buzzwords are very important. But I think more beyond that is the concept of saying, how does that impact someone selling a car on the street? Or how is that important to someone else who's probably a judge in a court of law? Their understanding of the word democracy differs. And I think I would just like to go around the table to just think about what does democracy mean to you? And then, because for me, to start with, I've always, like I said the last time, and I've always maintained that democracy is about what? Process. It's about the idea that we are will, as a Nigerian, as an individual, as a member of this community, will be able to once in a month, or once in 4 years, vote for my leaders. Choose who represents me in the parliament. Choose who leads me in my state. Choose who becomes Nigerian president. But it speaks nothing of the quality of that leader. It's about the process of electing leaders, but nothing to do with whether or not the quality of the leadership is going to be best. So I speak only, when I talk about democracy and the promise of democracy in my head, I'm only speaking only to the face of it that speaks to the process of choosing leaders and governing, and then the parameters that make that ecosystem function. But only to the process. But there's an assumption of how that process can lead to a particular outcome. But there's no promise of the outcome. I think the promise is only limited to the process of what we do. And that's how I think. So I will leave the floor open for everyone to just kind of like, what do you think? How do you explain democracy to anyone? In the context of the literary, how do we internalize the meaning of it? What does it even say? Is it just because we can have elections? Or is it just because we can have independent media? Is it just because we can voice our opinion and have freedom of speech and religion or gathering? It's just because of all these boss things, or is it more than that? Is it really about, is the ability of young Nigerians to have a job, to have education, to have access to health care, to have justice? Do we need to have democracy for all of those parameters to be achieved? I don't know. What do you think?
if you allow me, I for one would want to say that if I'm to explain democracy to a fellow Nigerian that happens to be my friend or foe, basically one thing I would want to underline is the process of electing our leaders, the choice we have been given to elect our leaders, the choice and the power that have been constituted in our hands.
I'm not happy with you.
Elect
Is this frame from this camera now the same thing that came with the last time?
Who decide how budgets, national budgets of our country are put together. And those processes are actually very important process, and it's the only thing I can actually say that actually separates that democratic system of government to every other system of government. But if you want to talk about the military system of government, we all know how they usually come into power. Of course, it was to play that military intelligence to organize coup.
If this is welfare stuff,
it's about traditional African ownership of royal system that we have before colonial governance came. We know it's about probably a military or probably a display of power in whatever form that can actually instill fear.
Why did you not leave me to show the one that you showed? Which is better? The one that I'm
so
not.
For me, democracy stands out in terms of the process through which we elect our leaders to lead us. And that does not stop there, because that process involves us as citizens as a very paramount player in determining or in determining, of course, who emerges as our leader, whether at the House of Rep, whether at the Senate, whether at the executive arm, the governor, the president, whichever category of level of governance you want to look at. But the essence, the most important thing I just want to highlight is the fact that democracy, to me, signifies that choice, freedom of choice to elect leaders. Now I'll put it to elect responsible leaders. Because what I noticed from 1999 to date is that the common citizens of our country have not taken into account that the level of power they have in terms of making demands at the right time. Because sometimes election comes and people just follow that trend of election without looking at what are the nitty-gritties of who emerges after this process. Because for one, I have been at the receiving end since 1999, from what I can remember, with the quality of policies that be put in place by our so-called leaders. And I know that for us, as citizens who have that magnanimity of power to elect leaders, we have not actually put it in the proper use in terms of trying to look at who are putting together to emerge as a leader. Then secondly, what I've observed in terms of the process when it comes to democracy is that there are a lot of things that are not right, that people are not really talking about in terms of, okay, the system of electoral system that has been put in place for us to allow candidates to be nominated through the parties, for parties to also put in place systems that will allow candidates to emerge from the parties, and also the process of campaigning, getting across to the electorate, and so on and so on. But at the end of the day, what I want to underline is that system has to be talked about. The electoral system has to be looked at. In and out has to be examined, because that has been one of the bane of the problem we have in our democratic settings today.
I'm so tempted to interrupt you, because when you talk about and that's probably what I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make. The idea that we assume that just because you have one vote and you can go and cast that vote, you are actually living in a democratic government and everything is okay. There's an assumption that we keep making that the protagonists or the people that talk about the concept of one man, one vote, vote and be voted for, assume that the people that are, someone that probably can survive in less than $1 a day, who doesn't do anything, who really doesn't, who the political elite has conquered, doesn't have any right. The idea that you can go and elect credible leader is based upon the fact that you yourself, you understand, you are well fed, you are in a reasonable, you are educated, you know your right from your wrong, you are informed, and for that reason you can go and make elections based on that information. But 80% of our leaders are not what? Of our the electorate are not, they don't have that. The choice has been made. The truth is that are we on the day of election? Is that the date that we are choosing our leaders? You just talk about it. So your second layer of response talked about the system that enabled the political elite to continue to rule over us because they control the parties, they control the institution of how you become a candidate, and you become the money that goes into the elections. And eventually, by the time you're coming to the table and you're looking at the ballot, you might have 40 political parties on your ballot, but the honest truth is that you're only making an option between two choices of parties. And then that choice of party, and either way you go to, you're only selecting one person.
Absolutely. Because
they both belong to the same people that have been stamped by the machinery that governs our country in the name of democracy. They are what? They are oligarchs. So I think that we should not, personally I believe, that narrative around we can vote, we have power, our vote count, cannot come, which again goes back into the process. Is it really about the elections? Is it about just because the election is going to happen and then there's going to be a cascade of an idea that there's an election and then the change that happened in that process that we just go and vote and then it stops there, we just assume that this person will do right and then in 4 years you come and repeat the same. And that's exactly why 20 years down the line, the basic functioning of government is still missing. You still go, and everybody is still coming, you're still building roads, you're still building classrooms, you're still doing street lights. Basic things is still what governors are still, today now they are still commissioning projects. And it's the same project that they've been commissioning 20 years ago that they are still, basic things. So, please.
I think from my own end, I will start from the tail end of your initial question. Do we need democracy to have available jobs? Do we need democracy to have good roads, lights, good health care system? We don't. Any form of government, can give us that. Now, as to what is democracy, first, I always just remove my mind from election. I know it's a core part of democracy, but from experience in Nigeria, that's why I started by saying that we're practicing pseudo-democracy. What is democracy? We have the textbook definition, government of the people,
by the people,
and for the people. Let's be honest with ourselves. The government we have now, is it by us? Is it for us? I mean, it's a question that we can really ask ourselves and answer. So are we practicing democracy? If we're saying government of the people, we're saying that the process of even bringing in this leader should be devoid of, ulterior interruptions or interruptions. For example, Ola was talking about, this old, someone who has not been fed in a week and then has one vote. We need to come to the understanding that our political class has successfully weaponized poverty in Nigeria. And so because of that, we cannot have the democracy that we're actually looking for because we are not choosing the people. Come every election, you have someone bringing in 1 bag of rice or 2 kg of rice, and then with that, you've successfully bought the vote of your, what do they call them now? Is it local government? Your constituency. It doesn't make sense. In old democracy, countries that have been practicing democracy, even though we know that, again, I always also try as much as possible not to compare Nigeria with other countries, particularly the US, because we jokingly say that whatever form of corruption has an English name started in the West. They would not call it vote buying, they would possibly call it lobbying or stuff like that, but there's a level of, interference that they have there that is just not, what we have here is just so astronomical to even say that we're practicing anything related to democracy. First, the process of electing our leaders are wrong. You said something about several electoral reforms. I see it from this perspective. Whatever reform that comes is something that the current administration is looking to exploit whatever it is that is already existing. It is not because they want to change something per se. It is because something is blocking the way from the previous electoral reform, and they need a loophole to exploit again in this new election. They came up with electronic voting. We're all here. This particular government that we have now, can we honestly say that in the spirit of democracy was brought in by us? And can we also say that it is for us? I think that's where we need to start, we need to reflect on this conversation the more. I will still sit on the table that currently in Nigeria, we assume we are practicing democracy, but we are not. And to directly answer Ola again, all of the things, the perks of governance that we ought to enjoy, we can enjoy it with or without democracy. So that's my take on that.
Okay, so are you, I mean, it's probably a little bit, I mean, I'm not saying, but which is actually the basic question that sometimes we need to look at ourselves in the face and ask. The response that we get doesn't really matter, but we really need to think about it. Considering our developmental stage, our society makeup, the way we are as a country, is democracy the best form of governance that would be suitable for our development at this stage of our life? Is it really? I don't. Please do. I'll be very happy.
All right. Please. All right. I'll start by answering your first question, and then I'll come to this. What does democracy mean to you? And I usually like to go to the origin of things here. I mean, there's a principle called first mention. When the first time a concept or a thing come about is where you see the most original definition. And let's go to the origin of democracy in itself. It started out in Greece, in Athens in Greece, I think 507 AD or something like that. And it came about, I first believe, let me answer the question, then I'll explain. I believe that democracy is a brilliant idea. I think it's an amazing idea. I even dare to say inspired by the Christian faith, inspired by the Bible. And I will explain. When democracy was formed in Athens, in Greece, they had just come out from the Roman Empire that was a Christian, that was theocracy. I mean, that was a form of government at the time. And they also had the couple of system of government around, but theocracy was what Roman Empire was running by, and that's enforced Christian rule over the people. And Roman Empire had just come out from, prior to that, from a barbaric lifestyle. I don't want to go into too much of that detail, but soon after the Roman Empire broke up, Greek, I believe that democracy was an improvement on what they used to have, because the Christian values, which I'll list some of them, was what had formed the society over time, and they wanted to improve on it, which I believe was even an improvement on Christian rule in itself. And what do I mean by that? When God in himself, in ruling and in leading people, I believe that even some other religion would agree, gave us free will. Yeah, so the concept of forcing people to be Christian, or forcing a society to run purely by, is not necessarily biblical. It's not godly. So I believe that democracy was a form of improvement, to say that we can't force. People have to have people have to be empowered, and all of the fundamental laws we have today, all of them literally originated. If you read the Bible from the first page of the Bible, Genesis, you see God giving man ability to the freedom to walk, freedom to choose, and all of that. But where am I going to with all of this? I'm trying to establish that democracy, I believe, is a very beautiful idea. And I would say that there are like two origins of democracy, because in Athens they practiced democracy for about 100 and maybe 20 years before it crumbled, before it was Macedonia took over, and it went back to authoritarian rule. But after a while, the United States actually even now brought up, and they were the first country in the world to have a written constitution, and they improved on the democracy even further. US was also a Christian nation, to put it, even at like a Bible Belt. It was a Christian nation, and these people came together to say, okay, let's develop this document called Democracy. Let's break it down. That's where the three arms of government came in, all the fundamental rights. And I also believe that it's also an offshoot. There's a school of thought that actually even believe that it was developed side by side. The Bible, I mean, the three arms of government being the, if you look at it closely by function, the Trinity of the Godhead, and all of those fundamental human rights, and many more. Everything can actually be tied to a degree. But this is just to establish that I think it's a beautiful system of government. But I think that there is a gap, a very wide gap. Now, to go back to Athens, when it started, most of the philosophers at the time did not agree or believe in democracy. They had their reservations. We see Socrates, for example, and what was their point? The problem was not that they did not believe in it. It was that they had concerns, most of them, and I'll bring that concern. I think that's still the problem we have today in seeing actual dividends in our democracy. And what was their concern? The one philosopher, I can't remember his name now. I can't remember his name now. But when they asked him that why does he not adopt or believe in democracy, he told them that go and start it with your family. That start democracy with your family. And then Socrates also had a concern that it's going to destroy a modern civilization, and he used an analogy. In his analogy, he talked about a ship. Imagine that there is a ship that is about to sail, and there are multiple sailors, people that are supposed to lead, and then you bring in democracy, and you don't pick based on merit on the person that actually can sail the boat, but you choose based on who is popular, the popular vote, whoever the person that is able to persuade, that is most popular. And guess what? From his analogy, the election goes on. The most popular person, who is not necessarily the most technical, the best person for that, to sail that boat, evolved. And then what happens eventually? It leads the whole crew. Destroys. I mean, leads them. If you cannot sail the boat, I mean, there's only one destiny for you. You know, down in the bottom of the sea. But in questioning him further, they asked that, so are you saying that the system of government is not should not be adopted at all? But no, he pointed them to the fact that he believes that the most important part of democracy should be that every of those sailors, whether the ones that lost or the one that contested or not, should actually be responsible for the sailing of that boat. And that brings me to the gap I believe that exists in democracy. So we might have been putting the spotlight wrongly on maybe just the ability to choose. But what about the ability to actually participate actively in that governance, and withholding the power to be able to if this person is not doing well, to yank the person off and put somebody else. But most importantly, the ability to participate, to drive, to sail the boat together, so that every of the crew member is also what's it called now? Is also in the rank, not in the rank officially, but is also a captain, so that every single step of the way, you know when he's taking a wrong turn and you're able to correct it. And I think that is what, and I mean, that's why I really agree when you talked about weaponizing poverty. Because the moment that a political, Thomas Jefferson says something, one of his most popular quotes, that the moment that the people are unable to monitor, I don't know how he said that, but I'm just paraphrasing, are unable to monitor the ruling class, they will become wolves, something around that. So the moment we are able to, political class is able to distract the people from shining the light of monitoring every step of the way, then they actually become wolves, and they do as they like and run the boat aground. So I believe that Nigeria also, now to bring it to context, I believe that the people are still even though we have left the military rule and the authoritarian rule, the residue of that mindset is still abound in every Nigerian. And then you get phrases like where Nigerians they can suffer and smile. And I believe that naturally, as a country or as a continent, we are not raised to question authority. We are just raised to accept things and accept. If I can say boldly that every protest or every agitation, almost every major agitation against a government decision in Nigeria was not even stirred by the public, was stirred by probably opposition. Maybe somebody behind the back just cooked. But because look at when our current president came in and his first declaration was to remove subsidy, nothing happened. I mean, it was able, nothing really nothing really happened. We are not a people that can stand up and say, no, we don't want this. So I think that the residue of the military rule, or maybe the upbringing of the country, contributes to keeping us unable to question and participate actively in the governing process. So,
I do 100%. I mean, I will even clap for that submission, because the reason is this, right? If you think about it, and that's exactly where all our problem lies. As a country, that's exactly, just successfully curated, maybe an academic, I don't know whether everybody can understand what you've said, but in my opinion, like, you've just successfully curated a perfect analogy of why democracy is failing in Nigeria. And the reason why no matter how much we try, if we do not change the fundamental functioning of our democratic systems, it will continue to be at the favor of the minority and disfavor of the majority, which means that the poor and the masses will continue to suffer, and then the minor political class will continue to do what? Benefit from it. Because the concept because the idea is very simple. Vote, be voted for. Independence. It's every institution or basis or principle of democracy as instituted is functioning in Nigeria. We have an independent judiciary, quote unquote. We have a separation of power, executive, legislature, and judiciary. We have independent media. We have freedom of speech, all the guarantees and all. But why is any of those things? Now, in the earlier session, in the earlier panel, there was a big thing about what happened in Rivers and why the legislature did not do anything about it, and why even the governor that was even wished to write is being trampled upon, cannot even look at the system and go and seek a redress in the court of law, because again he knows that he has to look for a political solution, not a legal solution, and he's not even able to die. Even if I die, he's not even a principled person to start, because if he was a principled person, he would die dearly, he would be remembered, and he would do the right thing. So I'm coming. So the point I'm trying to make here is that I do agree. And I believe that we should tell ourselves, democracy cannot be beneficial in Nigeria if the conditions through which we are currently practicing it continue to stay the same. If the principle through which we are doing it, this tokenism of assuming that just because we host elections every 4 years, is just what? It's tokenism. It's just scratching the surface. It doesn't even go deep anywhere. And that is why the legislature, one of the most important anger that I have recently is that I know these things before, but some few weeks back, it became really clear to me that the biggest enabler of corruption in Nigeria is the National Assembly. So you had a bunch of less than 1,000 people elected to represent different constituencies across the country in the two chambers, and they are the primary principal enablers of corruption in the name of constituency projects. The executive will come to them with a total amount of budget, and by the time the law is being passed, they have inflated it with 40%, and then just so that they can get something to their constituency in the name of what? And then we are talking about democracy. Everything else, what? That is why everybody lines up under the president, and the federalism is not working, none of this, because nobody can talk. And if that happens, the prediction of democracy came to light, because now everybody knows that if I don't align with the president, I get nothing. If I get nothing, I become a poor man. I don't want to be a poor man. I want to be so I will continue to do whatever I need to do. And then what happens? Now that is why the majority of us continue to be what? Subject to, and that is why a Tinubu will come. How on earth has somebody who protested against another government removing subsidy, and the first thing he did
was to remove that?
I am not speaking to the validity and the use of that, but nobody said, Pam, And we all I'm inclusive. I was in London. I was a student in London in 2012, and that thing I could never. It haunts me till today. I was one of the people that started the protest in London at the Nigerian embassy in London. I championed that subsidy, removal subsidy protest in 2020.
Championed the same in Nigeria.
And then when Tinubu came to government, and I'm thinking about it, like, wait a minute. Even though my understanding and the way I've understood things, government has shifted, which is why I understood the need for subsidy to go. But at the same time, my problem was, why do it the way you do it? Why not systemic? There are a lot of other ways to achieve that result. So right now, 2 years after the removal of subsidy, nothing has changed. All we have successfully done is take the money away from the people that are giving us fake invoices and stealing money from and give it to governors and then at the end of the day, why could man not leave the thing alone and let us know where we are? At least the common man benefits from it because it's cheaper. So
I think
you were about saying something.
Okay.
Okay.
I think the conversation is having a direction now because we are able to establish that not that the system is faulty, so we just need to do the right thing. And it is now the responsibility of the people in power and the ordinary citizen, like what you made, when there is a lack of active participation of citizens in government, it will look like the system is failing and we'll continue having this issue. Because the point is, there's no absolute active citizen anywhere again. What you can do in other country in 2012, you cannot boldly do the same in Nigeria because of some certain reason, some factors that have been put in place. So that is where the conversation should focus on. How do we actually bring that the love of the nation when those people that actually fought for this democracy, when they are fighting for it. I remember, some of them, they actually lose their life, lose their property, most of things, but no one dared to do that now. Recently, I think this morning I saw a Twitter about this Daddy Yatta, and that guy was allegedly, they said, is dead. Since 2019, they have kidnapped the guy and he's dead. And what is he's saying is criticizing the government. So looking at those examples like that, it's creating fear to thousands of Nigeria not to speak the right and the truth to the government. And that's where the problem is. I will keep saying that there's nothing wrong with the system, which is democracy. It's the people that are managing the system or that are supposed to sustain the system that are faulty. And we need to look ourselves critically, especially the people that are working in the civic space. Am I also do the right thing as a citizen? Am I saying the right thing to the government? Am I, using the power that I have? And also looking critically on building the system that's going to work. You keep saying, the National Assembly are the enabler, but when we look at it constitutionally, they are elected. They don't just put themselves there. So we need to look at, these people, they are not working. How can we start an action to prevent them not to come again in the next election? So that we will not continue having this, because I will not lie to you. If the care is not taken, 4 years down, 8 years down, we will still continue to be in this table having this same conversation.
I'll come to you, sir. But I'm coming to you, but I really need to follow this thought because I like your optimism. I don't understand how you just feel like, why do we need to give ourselves so much effort and work? Why do we need to do that? Why do you keep putting so much ideas and possibility about, you just in one statement now talks about the risks involved in speaking out. How you are not even sure that the government will not kill you, that the data is dead now, things that you don't, you are still saying that no, we should continue to open and do. Fundamentally, it is how do we, your question, let me rephrase your question. The question we should be asking is that how do we fundamentally undo the damage and the continuous damage that the political class of Nigeria continue to do? And there must be some form of systemic foundational disruption innovation. I don't know which.
I agree with you.
But we cannot support this whole talk shop around civil society. No, it's not working in Nigeria. We don't need that. We need a revolution, some kind of foundational and level out. Sorry, the power. Right now, we are all slaves. We have been conquered by the political class because they have all the money. They tell me, with all the work that you've been doing, if you stand for election of councillor in your village, you cannot win. Not because you don't have the ideas, not because you don't have the passion, but the system with which the thing is set up.
I've not tried that actually. I cannot say yes or no. I've not tried that. But while I said, let me quickly say this. While I keep saying the same and emphasizing more on why we need to be activists, we cannot say Yoruba used to use the word that so we cannot say because all those factors
Nigerians already need to be gay at this point.
Interestingly, I agree with you.
So I cannot say because all those factors are there and we will keep mood and we will not do nothing. So we just need to
having this conversation. We're already doing something, but we need to start doing something serious.
We are doing something. That's why I said, in the beginning I said it's conversation like this that will spark action. Because when we begin to talk about a particular issue, whether we like it or not, something before we start the EndSARS movement started on Twitter. When people keep saying and so something like that can still happen.
Deji, please.
No, let me just drop this. For me, I think that we have not asked ourselves the right questions.
Okay.
And if you look at it, even if you say, okay, you want to initiate a ballot revolution, you want to initiate a revolution from somewhere and all that, the question still remains that even if you initiate, are we still going to pass through the same electoral process that we have? That's one. Then two, as individuals that we have here, how are we involved in that electionary process? Because whether you like it or not, before these people have access to power, they were elected. Without election, they cannot have access to that power. That's one thing I want you to note. Whether by crook or hook, they got to the place where they can access that power and use it. And for me, if you look at it, I sometimes wonder, is it that Nigerians don't think? Because one, during the election of General Buhari, the ex-president, I was wondering what performance did he put together economically in terms of governance that actually made him to emerge. Because actually, if you ask me, there are a lot of people that still voted for him, apart from people that, of course, didn't vote for him. I know that some people voted for him, and I could understand the reason why.
Voted for who?
Buhari. The reason why, in terms of probably economic poverty that we talked about, then in terms of even himself manipulating the electoral institutions that we have in the country in some places where the elections were not going his way. So the technicalities are there, the basic realities are there, even the optimism is there as well. Because for me, if you ask me as a Nigerian, do I still think democracy can work in Nigeria? Of course, yes. But how do I think it can work in Nigeria? And that's where I would say, how do we actively participate? Because if we don't participate, there's no way. Without active participation, I will emphasize, without active participation, there's no way you can initiate any change democratically in Nigeria. And for me, if you want to say, okay, let's just sit at the round table and just talk about it and all that, it ends there. Then it means you have not done anything.
No. But this is why I look at it. I'm going to come to you for you in a second. I just wanted to be a little bit. I'm thinking about this, and this is what we've been doing for 20 years. Talking about what's the point of talking about participation when the game is already rigged? When there is no way. I say it today. You are involved in some way.
If I may ask you before you go ahead, how do you think they can initiate that thing you are talking about?
No, let's first of all, if I come and I'm sick, and I go to a doctor,
diagnosed,
and I just keep saying, I'm sick, and I'm saying, just go to a doctor now, and the doctor came and say, hey, you're sick now, and you're just talking, you're sick, and there is no first step. This standard process is what? You are sick. What are your symptoms? The symptoms does not mean anything. They are just what? Preliminary precaution that, okay, what might happen? Because they can mean 1 million things. And then from the symptoms, they say, okay, maybe you can do 3, 4, 5 tests. And then they go and do this diagnosis and they do the test, and then they can begin to now wither down your options and then till they probably figure out. But the moment they know what is wrong with you, fixing you is just rocket science. You just use the drug, use the dose, in 2, 3, 4, 5 days you're fine. Or they do a surgery and you're good. In the case of democracy and Nigeria, I would liken the effort when you come and say, what can we do? Let's be part of the process, saying all of those things to a game that's already rigged. That no matter what, let's fundamentally, anywhere in the world, election costs money, participation costs money, mobilization costs money. There's a system that's already determined that no matter what, on the process now of today is that for you to win a seat in the parliament, a seat in the parliament, you must be a candidate of a political party.
Of course, yeah.
And then for you to be a candidate of a political party, you must be godfathers. We're not having all of those conversations. What I'm trying to say is that let's begin to say for a fact and stop saying that there is hope within the limit of what we already have. We need to go and say to ourselves that no. If the process with which we want democracy to work in Nigeria remains an election where prior to going to the ballot, the decision has been made for you because you can only make a choice between 2 leading political parties. The rest of them are just there. And then the leading political party cannot, and they are going to sell their ticket for 50 million for House of Reps. And if you don't have 50 million, you cannot even get anywhere else, or you must have a sponsor. And then all of that. So the idea that democracy is a government for the people, by the people, for the people, you can one vote, one man, anybody can run. Remove that narrative. In Nigeria, you must win. They even have the numbers. If you go, you are involved in the process. If you are a member of any political party and you want to, they'll say, how much do you have? Do you have 100 billion? Yes. Okay. Now you can. They'll tell you what you can contest for based on how much budget you have, because they know that that's the minimum. So let's stop thinking and we're just continuing to empower and enable our leaders who have successfully. If this was 1999, I'm sorry, sir. Take a step back to 1999. All you needed to win election is to just show interest, because nobody believed that democracy can work. Nobody trusted the military, the mindset, or even the real people. And most people just ran for election without even trusting what would happen. And then by 2003, things started to shift. By 2007, but now in the last and it gets worse and worse. That is why governors will do 8 years. They'll go and retire in the Senate because they have the money to do everything. Stop saying participate. I don't like participation.
Let me just lay this foundation. I agree with you. Participation is important, but we also need to understand that we are underestimating the political class. As a people, they are way smarter than we think they are. Even the legislators. How do I mean? First, I talked about weaponized poverty. Recently, we are having weaponized distraction, right? When it is time for election, something must happen that will take the attention of the youth, right? We think that those things are just things that were not orchestrated. They were carefully orchestrated so that our attention, gets drawn away from the real thing that is going on. Secondly, we're talking about legislative. How many of us know the kind of policies that we have in this country and have read through those policies? You come at them with one thing, they already have a document that is backing it up. When they were making those policies, you were not involved. You were not, even though the process requires that you get called so that you have a say. There's a youth policy that was developed for the youth. The youths were not present, but it was developed for the youth. There were policies for the women were not present. Consulted. They were not consulted. The women that matter were not consulted, but there's a policy for women, there's a gender policy. All of these things, okay, we have, how many of us now, if you go to CAC now, you want to register a company that is dealing with active citizen participation and all of that, you think that you will get that non-profit registration. It's not possible. Because the CAMA, it's already there. There are some words that you cannot use in your registration now. But when the CAMA was being done, we were all here, maybe we were talking about Big Brother Nigeria, or we were talking about one thing or the other, yet policies that will affect our lives are being created, and then we're now coming to now talk about participation. Now, participation is important, don't get it wrong, but we are not saying that the responsibility, let's take our eyes away from the political class. In the civil space, when you want to pass a bill or you want to do an advocacy or you want to, protest against something, they would say if you want it to fly, you must have political will. Why should that be? Well, it has become a staple in our language in the civil space. Political will, political will, political will. It is because even us, we are, putting much emphasis on the availability of that political will for us to be able to make real change. The countries that are making good progress with democracy, it's because it's a highly litigated, the citizen, there's the office of the citizen, right? Yeah. But do we, in democracy, there's the power to the citizen, but do we have it in Nigeria? In the definition of democracy, I will still go back, government of the people for the people. What we have failed to realize is the people that we have elected, they have seen it as it is a government for me,
my family,
for my family, and by me.
And
that's the definition of democracy for them. So how do we, change this narrative is what we should be talking about now.
And that brings me to my question. I want to ask a question. I'm not even saying. Then that's the article. Thank you very much for reiterating the energy. So the conversation that we should be having, it's about what are we thinking about. Even though the participation concept, I'm just saying that the energy that can come from that is too limited, that we're still trying to symptomize something that by this point what we're doing is what? Using drugs to cure. If we have a member of parliament year in, year out for the past 4 or 5 parliamentary sessions,
it's a family,
and then every single time a budget comes, they will up it by 30%, 40%. So it started with 5%, 10%, and it keeps going. And now, this current year is almost 700 billion addition to what they're not even fighting to say remove. They just say, is that all you want to bring from the executive? Okay, add my own. Everybody bring. Oh yeah, based on the committee level, and then add it all up, and then you go, because there are no consequences. And by the time the election is starting, every single 1,600, 1,400 and how many of them are in the National Assembly now? The 2 chambers, all of them, they have enough money to win the next 3 election cycle. And you are coming to campaign to say, I have better idea. You cannot even volunteer to have post.
Right now, there's no governance anymore. We're already in the season of election. There's
and
no
that everything. And why should, in a sane environment where there is, the action should, that's why I'm saying that our action should be, there should be no reason. Go back to, let's talk about principle. If we think about it, in a country where the president was elected, the governor of a state was elected, we are a federalism. 2 layers. Local government, state, and federal. Independent. They are not even like, there's no hierarchy. You are all doing your thing, or not talking to each other. You got your mandate alone. You come and remove another person. And of course, let's assume that we have a president that is choosing to stretching the stretch of the law, or the bound of the law, based on the constitution. And then the governor just accepted. Okay, layer one. The governor does not want to fight. Okay, I accept. The legislature in the state layer, the judiciary in the state, all of them accepted. Federal government, the federal government legislature too accepted. And then as of today now, that matter is settled. By what? By political will. And then all we can do, me and you can do, is go to. And so in the last 2 months, critical important things. All the members of National Assembly, as each of them gotten themselves minimum of 500 to 6 billion each. The one that is least important will get 500 million. The most important one, the chairman of committees will up to 6 billion, 8 million to provide me and you street lights, to tar roads that they will never, and in the name of constituency project, and then the budget. So for every time me and you enter into the shop to buy Gary, that we should be buying 2,000, but we are not buying now 15,000 now. Those are the people now, because of the inflation, the removal of the subsidy, the money that we have saved now in subsidy now is now the money that they will now use to win the election next year.
Of course.
And nobody is talking. And you are telling me go and participate. We need, and that brings to your question about why are we not
I think
talking
we need to
about
understand the concept of participation.
No, man, I'm coming back. I'm just saying that we need to know that, okay, what is the biggest maybe you might be right, but what is the biggest place where our effort, where the idea should be focusing on, should be navigating towards that collective institutional thing and be, okay, where is the biggest, that's why my initial analysis about, you go to the doctor, they do from your symptoms into test and all of that, and the test now, where we are now, in my opinion, is that we know that our leaders are our problem. Start and finish. We have diagnosed the problem. How do we remove the control, the audacity, the enablement that we have all unintentionally allowed the leaders for the past 10, 15, 20 years to continue to shield and continue to do things, and it's not getting worse, and then nobody's talking about it. And how do we begin? But don't tell me to go and vote. Don't tell me to go and register to vote. Don't tell me to go and run for election. No,
things you do, right?
We should. Those things are no longer part of Nigeria's democratic solutions anymore. We should go to the National Assembly. I'm with you, sir.
All right. So I think that this is the way I see it. So I mean, in the last, some years ago, I spent like 2 years developing, getting answer to the question of youth, maybe not participation, youth dominance, or how young people that are thriving, young people that are, because we see this revolution coming in like the entertainment space, for example. We see young people from Nigeria becoming one of our biggest exports, doing well. We see in business, we see how that we have maybe like 7 unicorns out of Lagos alone. And how can we bring that energy into politics? How can we dominate the space with young, vibrant, bright minds? And I developed a book that I co-authored with Senator Babafemi Ojudu, who was the political advisor to Buhari at the time. And I took about 2 years to develop an answer to that question. Interviewed, spoke to like the 10 youngest office holder. How did you get in? What did you do to get in? Encompassed in the book, and spoke to Babafemi Ojudu, who worked very closely with the current president in installing like maybe almost all of the Southwest governor from 1999. Was also the campaign manager in 1999 when he ran for Lagos State governorship. And over 2 years, we came up with a book, the book of titled Politics That Works. And the direction that I believe that I got out of that work, out of that, pulling all of that work together. First of all, before I attend to that, I want to say something that you touched on saying that, first of all, I think that development is incremental. And we got here in our corruption, in the level of rottenness that we are, not in one day. It has taken years. As a matter of fact, I saw a document from 100 years ago when Samuel Ajayi Crowther, who was 100 years ago in Oyo State, was kidnapped by X-Men. So I'm like, this problem that we have that is still in our paper today has been since 100 years ago. 100. So I mean, it makes me wonder. So I think that it has. So it's more rampant now. It was a big news when it happened at the time, but now because it has built over time. So I think that the solution, to a degree, would also be incremental. And I see that it would be if we say we've not seen some level of increase, change in the recent decades, we will also be lying, because the Peter Obi phenomena that happened is a disruption, whether we choose to agree or not. You have said that we have 2 major political parties. The election is already predetermined, but that was young people came out and made a mark. That's one. Sorry. And then we see over time.
I just want to ask, how did it make that mark?
Yes, I'll get it. And we see over time how Peter Obi was an offshoot of this police brutality. NSAS. It was an offshoot of NSAS. We also have seen in recent decade how technological platform has helped, how people are beginning to speak up on Twitter and they are getting responses. You can go on Twitter now and speak against like a government agency, and it will trend and they will answer you and they will fix it. You can call out NEPA, call out an agency, even call out a governor, and if you can get enough clout around it, they will respond. So to a degree, I mean, better than we used to have it maybe 20 years ago, there is a little increment. So now, I think that the problem we have, you mentioned that the political class are wise. I don't think they are smarter than us. I think they are just more strategic. And I think that's where we have a problem. We are not strategic. We need to sit down on the table and map out how do we do this. When Nigeria was going to be colonized, the history has it that about only 1,000 Britons came to Nigeria. 1,000 people came to a country that had between 50 to 100 million people. And everything they set out to do, they were successful. Why? Because they were strategic. They sat down and planned. How do we take this? How do we take this? So it's not necessarily about manpower. It's not about the volume of the number of the masses. It's about being strategic. Let's sit down and think, what do we do? How do we strategically do this? Now, to answer the question that I was able to get, that the idea that I put forward with my book. So I believe that if we can infiltrate, maybe not even creating new parties, if we can mobilize ourselves, just like we did with the NSAS movement, just like we did with Peter Obi, just like that number, we are mobilizing it on Twitter, that we are seeing little results. If we can mobilize ourselves and populate these parties, the major parties, APC, PDP, get the numbers in, you'll be shocked. I'm a member of APC. I attend ward meetings sometimes, and you'll be shocked the kind of people you see there. There are maybe Okada riders, tailors. You will literally, if you attend one of those meetings, you will literally see yourself making a difference, improving the conversation they are having, bringing fresh ideas. So imagine 20 of you going to a meeting that, or even insisting that, chairman, we must have meeting this, because a lot of times they don't even have those meetings.
No, I don't believe
so
that.
I believe that if you can infiltrate the process,
this is not the issue of
I don't believe that will work.
believe or not believe. He has a very important question that how can we move from this situation that we find ourselves? And it's very simple. You made a point that we need to be strategic, because these people, not that they are human beings like us. If you you say you are a member of APC and you are elected as you will become a politician, and we will categorize it as a politician. Do you get my point? I'm saying that to let us know that they are human beings like us.
Absolutely.
They are thinking the way we are. But major point that's missing is we actually come together or think when the action needs to be taken. They think and strategize before that action needs to be taken. They plan themselves. You know, they are somewhere now since last year thinking about 2027 election planning. And we are coming.
Representative will not come out until 3 months to the election.
The citizens are coming in 2026 to be saying, oh, go and vote. Oh, we need to educate people on civic rights. Your vote is your right.
Absolutely.
Why don't we begin to let them know that your vote is your right, but voting for the right people is
I like what you are saying.
Oh,
so,
sorry.
Sir,
I understand what you're saying.
Another point that, sorry, I need to say this. Another point that is very important is, if I want to build a story building and I'm building it alone, it should take me a very long time. But if I have you by my side, I have you, we join that effort together to build that building. Do you know, if I suppose to spend like 3 or 4 years to achieve that, I can do that within a year or 6 months.
No, you may actually not build it at all. If you see, this is my own opinion.
What
the point to you, if my interest does not align with
the point, that's the point I'm saying, that the service interest that we kill, don't let me use that word, that's affecting every one of us is why that we are existing. Especially when it's come to participation.
It's something about them, okay, coming into PDP or coming into APC.
Yeah.
If the vine is spoiled, if you have a wine in a jar that is spoiled, and you bring a fresh wine and put it inside that jar, the entire batch is
it's a people-driven system.
If you bring in people, so what the dynamics? Okay, my father was an active politician before he died, right? And at a point he had to step down because, of course, he became the head of the family, and there are different political parties within the family, so he needed to be the head that he was. Now, this is the thing with politics. If you join in today and you want to take in a position, you can actually line up for the next 20 years and not be able to get a position because there are people ahead of you that wants to get into that. In fact, there are people who have been told to step down for another person several times several elections. I had a friend who contested, I think it's a mutual friend, that has contested 3 or 4 times now in the election and has lost.
Why?
Internally,
You cannot even get
the
to general election.
Now, this is someone who is as passionate as us. We want changes, we want all of these, joined the political party, became very active, he was the voice, he was going everywhere. Each time he is to get the primary ticket, he would always be told, there's someone ahead of you. There's someone that has been waiting for this person that is there to finish his tenure. And this person that is there is still going to do 2 more, seasons in the Senate or in the House of Rep, in all of these things.
Can I answer your question?
The participation is not only
Can I answer
in the
your
election.
question?
It's not only when you are
I'm
contesting.
responding directly to his suggestion of us as youth or as people infiltrating existing
Can I answer your question?
political
So
parties.
Can I answer your question? Can I answer a question? Can I quickly answer a question?
Please go ahead.
So I believe that the biggest resources, the biggest political capital we can have is not money. Think about it. It is, now to use your word, it is weaponized number, masses.
It's the number.
If you have the people and you can channel it well, even from the time of the Bible, when the children of when people came together and said they wanted to build a Tower of Babel, even God said himself that even I cannot stop these people once they've come together in unity. Let me tell you, think about it this way.
That's the point.
How do you think that, I know people that all through like 4 years to build up to election, all they do is mobilize numbers. And guess what? They get a seat at the table. If you have 1 million active, even if it's a forum, you have numbers across the state, in the country, across Nigeria, and you will get a seat at the table.
As bad
as
as
being bought
it
off
is,
just because they have
we can witness that
put your number
in the last election.
If you strategize with your
Let's
number,
reflect.
that
The only
is bigger than money.
is built on the number, not on the money.
I'm
Built on the number, not on the money.
You will get the
And
number.
but the fact that
In
we
a
are saying,
political party, you get the
because
number.
of this,
You are
I will not have my
politician.
way, I will not
Your number will
participate.
be diverted for the next. It is all about the interest of your
Okay.
party.
Let's hear the opinion because it's actually involved in political, grassroots political organizing.
Involved in election process, electionary process is 1999. As war secretary from one party to the other, and I can tell you categorically that the process of election, the problem I've observed that is major thing. You said it, probably you have not pinpointed. Even if you carry 1 million youths to join the political party, the problem will still continue. Because one, the electoral process that we have is so highly capital intensive that if you don't have money, the money that you suffer for, you cannot win. Even if the money that you suffer for, without money, you cannot win election. Because you spend that money, and some people somewhere will just gather together and put double, triple of that money you are spending just to do something very insignificant. I guess it is. So the process is so cumbersome that if we don't tackle electoral process, we cannot get it.
It starts to be systemic change. That's why I wanted to.
I guess it.
Let's take a step back.
So if you say 1 million, you go and join this. I have a candidate that contested for. Of course, I have different candidates, and I'm going to give you a simple analogy. Just for House of Assembly, this is not bribing. You are bribing this. Just a systemic way that you know that there is no way you cannot avoid these expenses. Okay, you must put polling unit agent in every polling unit now. And you have more than 1,000 polling unit agents you have to mobilize for your elections. And the fact is, if you don't put polling unit agent in any polling unit, it means that you don't have votes in those places. Now tell me, to put those polling units, just put that rate of, let's say, 2,000 naira, just for them to be able to transport themselves and probably want to buy a drink. Look at what
that one election.
I don't think so. Even we inspire people enough. So did Peter Obi pay polling agent in Lagos State? So tell me. Peter Obi pay polling agent unit in Lagos State. Let's take Lagos State.
Conduct election 1 million times. Peter Obi will never be Nigerian president.
Let me put it to you. Sorry.
It is the fact.
Let me tell you one thing. Another fact is that you see the nature of the country we have is a heterogenic in nature, in terms of the tribal, whatever is in your. So all those, there are a lot of factors that come into play when the process for us to elect our leaders come in. Because one, that's when you hear that some people will be trying to politicize certain issues to win those people over without necessarily spending money.
Let me
So those are little factors that come.
I'm actually interested in.
Can I give a true story? I want to give a true story.
For one,
can I give a true story?
Let me just land this on. Let me end with this. Because for one, for me, that I've had experiences for past 25 years in our political process, and I know the basic. If you can solve that problem, simplify the way people vote. Simplify that. Even at the corner of my house, I can just say, "Papa." I can see it and let it be free.
Now you are speaking my mind around the innovation and the process.
Man, simplify the process by which people vote, simplifies the process of nomination. Simplify the process of nomination. Then, of course, the other way, other ones, media involvement in politics has to be well regulated as well.
Thank you.
I can see so. Bring 1 million youth into every political party. That system.
Because the system, the problem is not the numbers. You are assuming every other thing is right. There is nothing wrong with your suggestion. Very valid. That is our systems where there is no state capture. There's a language for that's this state capture in the sense that there is foreign power, there is local power across the board from the biggest of the power to the smallest of the smallest. There is already an environment where some people that this, they wait for 4 years. They will nurture communities. That word, those that they will wait for you. That state chairman, those state election and political parties, they will nurture themselves for 4 years and they will wait until the election comes. And they have a press. There's nothing you can say. They will collect money from all the candidates, and after all of that, they will still listen to Abuja. Have you not seen people do elections? There are a lot of court cases now. They will do primaries and then they will remove that candidate and change their name. I know people that even want, my friend Solomon, even won the case in the appeal court. Right? And they still won the case in the appeal court and they still call them from Abuja. At that point, what are you going to do?
That's what I'm saying.
What are you going to do? You have done everything right. But this is the point. Let's reflect on the last election cycle.
So, but before you leave that topic of systemic change, I believe that it is not either or.
Of course.
It is all and. However, we can't trust the current people that are benefiting from the system to be the one to change the system.
That is exactly okay. So we are getting to we are getting somewhere.
The cohesion and the cooperation of the number we have, which is our only advantage. We don't have money. We don't have money, but we have the number.
And I'm saying that can only work if you have a system whereby those numbers can sit down somewhere and
thank you something, which is what we are supposed to build towards. We will not expect them to just do it if nobody sits. If there's no leadership to mobilize, which was the problem that this last protest we had, this NSA problem. There was no leadership. That's the problem we had.
So the point
there was no leadership.
It's accidental. And when things are accidental, they don't succeed.
So that's what I'm saying. We need a leadership.
And why has that not? So let's now come back. Let's come back to it. This is why. That's why every time we talk about mobilizing, coming together, creating coalitions, and trying to take action, I'm skeptical about it. It's not like I don't believe at the core of that idea. It's because you are minimizing the level at which this political class has captured us. That's why I'm saying let's take a step back. There has to be a fundamental change of the game, which is why I'm drawing towards what you were saying about. Is there innovation in governance process, in this election process, and this democratic process that can remove so much influence that our political class already has in the current process? That can at least you can now play fair. It's a game that is rigged. No matter how you play it, the masses will always lose. Let's call a spade. As long as the game is spade. Let me give you a good example. Some people will come now, they talk about what Peter Obi did in the last election. But everything that you record, I'm not underestimating the success that Peter Obi had. But it's accidental. Peter Obi was destined. He was just a beneficiary of a system that is still between the political class. It was a clash of the political power that he now ended up because he's not a candidate, and then the anger came. If there was no scarcity of naira, if they all gang up against and all of, so wait, Peter Obi never did any serious community grassroots field mobilization, nothing. So there is no way he will have counter the basic narrative of winning elections in the first instance. That was why on the day of the election, even though he won everything else worked in his favor, that was why he was unable to have the machinery to protect even the natural vote that came accidentally to them, he was unable to get good of it. Because there was really no, that followership It's not authentic. And that is why I keep back coming to Yusuf's idea around let's come together. And that one of the biggest things that could have happened to Nigeria, because Peter Obi is also one of the political class.
So, but imagine
so he got manipulated into the political class. Because immediately after the election, if Peter Obi became the champion of, okay, this is why we lost. This is what we didn't have. Okay, whether through Labour Party or through any other party, and by now, 2 years down the game,
start building it.
And then now he's now still attending. If Peter Obi is still attending coalition meeting with Atiku, what are you talking about?
See, now we're on the same point. That if Peter Obi could have used, if he have identified that this was a loophole, there's no structure to hold, and build towards it.
The honest leader is not looking at you, he just wants
to after election, start to build that strength in the ground. We'll have a better chance
that we give to Peter Obi is not because we don't know he's part of them. It's because the young people we are too tired. But we believe the information you mentioned that, you know, when you want to like if you want to do something and you know they are going to stop you, you also need to be smart and pretend like you are part of them. That's what happened to Peter Obi.
No, Peter Obi is not pretending because Peter Obi is part of them.
I said we.
Don't say that he's not part
I'm not saying him now. It is we that we are supporting him. So we know he's part of them, but we believe that if another person is just coming, he may not do that.
So we should ask ourselves, what was his track record?
No, this is not about Peter Obi. Let's not distract ourselves.
He doesn't have any name.
It is this idea of a that level. That is what we need to start to talk about. That syndrome that somebody will come and all of a sudden solve Nigeria problem. And no, it is the idea that I remain, and this is where I rest my own understanding, my own way, that if we really want to disrupt, I want to think about this. I don't have an answer yet, but my thinking, the brainstorming that I want us to be having, and that's what I do in some of my work, is to begin to ask the question that what form of disruption can we have that will change? Because if we don't change the rule of this game, we will always lose playing it. Because these guys have mastered, have cornered, and there is no way. As long as they are going to wait to the concept of you must join a political party, buy a form, and go through that process that they have already conquered. It will always be about, they will bring lists from
and
the
they're already
state.
seeded, their children are also already seeded.
Sorry, let me just point.
Okay.
This political process we are talking about, like you said, okay, they always. One thing I want you to know and underline is that for every law, there's also always an exception. Exception that we keep for ourselves, or exception that probably we didn't capture when in the process of trying to put together those laws. And for me, even if you put these things that we set together, there will still be some exception that will play out into their hands. But one thing that I know for sure is that if you can simplify the process of election, there is a limit to the number of people you can. You get what I'm saying?
Influence, yeah.
And that's why we are saying the same thing now.
So let's come back to the strategy.
Now,
how can we get that?
Now,
so this is my last question. This is my last question.
Digital.
So this is my last question. So thinking about it, we've had this conversation, and I think we're all kind of like getting there, because we were supposed to end at 7, and it's already past 7 actually. So I don't want to keep this dragging in there, and this conversation doesn't stop. It's always going to end. So it's always going to continue. So the idea is that let everyone take a moment to think about all these things we're saying. And then both from your own contribution, from what you've had other people shared, and then what do you think within the context of, and I think let's be as diverse as possible. No, I'm not saying share the solution that you need, but what do you think is one of the, maybe it might be one, it might be two, but at least two most important things that we should be thinking about, working on, or it might just be ideas or things that will most likely, first and foremost, do we agree that for Nigeria to work, for democracy to be beneficial, to be intentional in Nigeria, to give us the kind of outcomes and development that we need, there must be a change in the way the game is played, which is basically the rules of the game and how they structure the systems, and then the promise and the concept of how elections work and all of those things, as against how this current one where our political elite has already mastered and they've cornered everywhere. There's no way you come at them. They are just going to be better at the game than you will do, because they are masters of it. They have money, they have political power, they have everything at their disposal to fight it. So common man will always lose. But then, what are the most important things? Is it about increasing our voices as citizens, as individuals? Is it about strategically thinking about how we can work together? Whatever it is, do you think 1 or 2, 3 ideas around how we can begin to either reduce the influence or counter the narrative. They already started that by trying to talk about this idea around changing the way we vote and making sure that more and so just let's go around the table and we'll close. Thank you.
First, I think we need to change the mentality of those people they have captured everywhere, and there's no way out on that. I don't believe in that ideology that they know their way, they will always find their way. Why do we have that belief? We need to change that, because that's when we are ready. Yes,
but that's the most simple. However, Joseph, I'm sorry, I beg to differ. That's the truth.
Please, see, it is the truth, yes. But if we have that belief, do you know nothing will work for us?
No, I agree with you.
Because we will always say, if we bring the idea on the table, we say, no, they have already,
they have not captured.
No, even if they have captured that, can we think of
and that's the boss. We don't accept that reality. We cannot think outside the boss now. We always continue to think anywhere we go. It will always be. We always try. We always try.
Different when you have that. They are maybe okay. Ola is the one that owns this place, so I cannot have it. It's different when you know that Ola owns this place, but I can also have my way there. So that's
as far as democracy is concerned in Nigeria, the Nigerian political entity. I have constantly.
So why are we now talking about changing something if we know they have captured it?
How do we change the rule so that we can capture it?
It's for us not to believe that.
But without changing the rule, But without changing the rule of the game, we will never be able to win.
When we change our mentality and we are ready to change it, that's the first point. The second point is the innovation they mentioned. It's Billy's idea. Employing the tech into the system will be a great idea and advantage for us. And the third one is the point that we keep raising, organizing. Because we still have thousands of Nigerians that cannot operate smartphone. And they will vote. And these people will get to them. So if we fail to organize, strategically, and get to the grassroots, the smartphone or whatever will not work for us.
At the point when the name of the election, by the time you are that organize, you reduce every. I think most of it. Okay, don't worry.
See.
I will reserve my comment. Please,
I of course, what you say to some extent, of course, I want to agree with you. For me, if we must take democracy to the level where we all desire in this country, of course, there must be, like you said, a change of the rules of the game. And how do we change the rules of the game? We look at the process of electing our leaders. One of the important phase of that is the casting of our votes. So if, as it stands now, we know that for sure our leaders have succeeded in what we call, of course, is the normal language when election, anytime the electioneering process starts, and that's the vote buying. You have different ways of trying to get their influence on the choice people make when they want to cast votes. And I know that if we also look at it, there's also another factor we always see during elections, and that's voters turnout. You see, I've been at collation center for how many elections now? You see registered voters, probably like 1 million. At the end of the day, you see that about 300,000 or less will be showing up to cast votes.
Because the register is not real.
No, in most cases, I'll tell you, at least 85% to 90% of them are real. But if you look at it, when you are going to, like me, when I'm going to vote, you will see a lot of people that will not leave their house.
Have you seen the barriers? It's still the same thing. See, for example, last election I didn't vote. And why? Sorry for continue. Why didn't I vote? So I've been saying about the systemic capture that we're talking about. Why didn't I vote? I went to this primary school in Wuse here more than 10 times to register. Is a lie. There was a time that I was like, it will not be, I must have my voter's card validated. And I went there, it's 5 a.m. in the morning, I still did not get registered. Why must I put that much of an effort to get registered to vote? Because that is what they know. They want to make it difficult for you to vote, to register, so that when you are, by the time that's most people that will not go for a register is because of that reason.
What you're saying, but what I'm trying to highlight are the basic faults, problems, challenges that we face when it is that critical time for us to look at who gets to which powerful position in the country and all that. And for me, I know that if we are able to take care of how we vote, simplify it, like I said, let people have that will to be able to sit down at the corner of their board of view and be able to cast their vote. Even if you are going to influence, they cannot influence. Let's say about out of 200 million people, about 100 million people registered. They cannot influence all the 100 million people. And I can tell you that the level of turnout when that process is simplified will be, I can say categorically, to be up to 80% turnout from the number of registered voters that we might have at that point in time. So I believe that if we can take care of that process, that point, that line, we'll be able to enhance that sincerity of purpose that we are looking for in our electionary process. And secondly, I'm also looking at that big problem that we have at the level of the political players that we have, which happens to be the political parties. How do we simplify that process of election of candidates, the way they emerge, the volume of finance that has to go into that process? INEC has to look at it, Nigerians have to demand for it, that it should be simplified. Because if you want to, okay, what was the difference between 1999 election and every other election? It was because that was the first time we were transiting from military regime to a civilian regime. And what stood out was the fact that level of finances was totally played out.
Yeah, that's true.
Financing plays a significant factor.
You are eating very important points around those reasons that is causing those systemic concerns.
So it did play a significant factor, and over time we've seen that suddenly, if you don't have, even if you put all your life savings together and you come for politics to contest, to empower the dreams that you have for this country, you know that you might be left not only downcasted, but you might be left.
Why do you need to spend your life savings to run for government?
No, yeah, because that's what the situation has created. If you don't,
and if you manage to win, you must get life savings back.
That's where the problem is. But when you now win, eventually, I've had that experience. That I don't want to mention the name of the person. I was involved in the process of campaigning and all that, and after election, of course, I had some proposals I went to put, and they were telling me, hey, that they spend this so amount of money, so every proposal that comes, they corner it, that they are recouping the money they spend for elections. And I can put you, even this Tinubu that we have, if at the end of the day he aggregated how much he spent to be able to get to this office.
You were speaking.
At the end of the day, you know that there's no way it will be in this office.
He's still recouping.
He's still recouping.
That's why he's doing mega project. And that's why he has to take policies that is determined towards it, because he spent the most amount of money ever.
So the same thing is applicable to every other political orders that you have, whether in the House of Assembly, in National Assembly, whether House of Rep or
Councillor.
I guess so. Even at the level of councillor, even councillor these days, they don't. If you look at the state elections for local government elections, you'd barely have installations of candidates from a ruling political parties in all the states.
Yeah,
I guess so. At the end of the day, you know that, of course, the finances part might not be there because they don't really actually do much of the campaigning that they normally do in the general elections. But for me, if we can take care of the process through the finance level involvement that is required at the level of candidates emerging for elections, then we will have been able to at least address one of the basic problems that has given that room for every other thing we are not talking, whether corruption in the House of Assembly, corruption in the National Assembly, or the corruption in the executive.
I mean, Deji, I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you very much for that. So I really appreciate that, because you speak to one of the most important things that we no matter how, it's very difficult for people to talk about, but it's the influence of money, the influence of power. These are all things that, and we didn't really get to talk about the core challenges, but we'll just speak more on this. So, Foye, thank you.
Well, I think I agree with him as well. And one other thing that I would add, or two, would be, beyond the election, selection, and all of those things, would be that citizens, citizens' education, right? If we were able to raise those with NSAS without strategically planning it, howbeit accidental it was, if we can come together strategically and raise those to demand accountability. Because we need to be able to take away that audacity they have for not delivering and still having that, audacity that they would come in the second time. So for example, campaigns have begun for the next election,
Sure, yeah.
whereas there are no results to show for it. If we can raise those demanding accountability, then we will get somewhere. At least people will know that there's something they need to do. It is not just get there and do anyhow. There's something that you need to do for you to have that privilege to be there again. So if we can have that, come together, we have technology. NSAS was aided, by technology. If we can use that technology, but instead of it being accidental, let it be careful,
more intentional,
strategic, intentional.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let people know about their rights. Let people know what they need. What we should stop celebrating construction of roads. It is not an achievement. So you don't come to us to say that because you built this road, you have done something. That is not it. If this is our budget, let us demand accountability for that budget. Let us raise those. And this might be unconventional. If you're not performing as a legislator, we can flog you out of where you are.
So, again, it goes back to the point around we are making it easier.
If you're there and you're not working, we can flog you out of the place. But how do we do that strategically? We need to put the fear of God. We need to put fear in them to know that they cannot treat us anyhow. But just the same way, they got scared with MSAS. We can raise that same amount of fear.
That's one of the most lost opportunity. That one needs to be studied.
So that's
no, I agree with you for you, because I think that at the end of the day, one of the biggest problems that is enabling our leaders further is that there is no accountability and there is no need to be accountable, and any angle they go, any which way they do,
they always find their way.
And so there's no so even if you are coming to say that, they know that all I just need to do is let me get my way to get the ticket, get my way to win the election. Whether I'm buying, and then if I can do that, there's no consequences for any other thing, and that is why we are not getting anything. But is there a way that we can increase the consequences for bad leadership? Is there a way we can receive, at least in the political sense of things, whereby when people, and that is really, it's an ambitious goal to have, because unfortunately the evidence suggests a very, very limited ways to do these things. But what can we do? We keep hoping, and we keep hoping that there could be, but I really feel like there might have to. So.
All right, thank you very much. I'm glad that we are converging back to myself and Yusuf's point. And it's very simple. The goal is electoral reform, systemic reform. But how do we get there? So to get there, the capital, the resources we need is not money, is people, is mobilization, is organizing. And then, first of all, we need to be able to bring ourselves together, have the same purpose, and go at it together as a force. The one of the most unstoppable forces, and I want to even break it down further, because she literally just said everything that I was going to say. But how do we break it down further? How do we take something out of this space today? I want anybody that is listening to this to go and study about movements. Yeah, because most of the disruptive change that has happened in the history of the world, from medieval time to all of round history, has been focused by movements. Some people came up, mobilized their people, and in that large number went at it. It was not necessarily money. I want everybody to go and study about movements, see how people were able to do it. And in your small way, let's begin to speak about the mindset that everybody is corrupt, everybody can be bought. I think it's also a wrong mindset. If we go to the Bible, where there was a time where Elisha was complaining to God that I'm the only one serving you in this whole, nobody, I'm the only one that is serving you. God told him that no, is it 7,000? There are 7,000 people that have not bowed their head that are serving me. And for Elijah to think that he was the only one, it means that he was even in a worse position than we are today. Mm-hmm. But if we look deeper, there are people in thousands, in their numbers, that would not sell out, that will not be corrupted. We just need to find those people, bring ourselves together as a force, and go at it. So I think something we can take home today from this is at least go and study about movement that transformed, that caused disruption in the world, and see how we can begin to organize ourselves and pick these things one by one and try to knock it down.
I agree with you. 1 second. I agree with you, but I want to put a caveat there. I did actually, I've done some research around movement. So I did a whole dissertation around the Orange Revolution in Eastern Europe, and how the church changed a lot of things post USSR and all of that. But this is it, right? that idea around curating mobilization and movement and building coalition, there's only one thing that leads people to that. Fear, action, hunger. We need to, that's why my posture is changing as a person. At the beginning of this year, I used to be like Yusuf, very optimistic about Nigeria, very concerned. Now I'm hungry. My default about Nigeria is anger. And because I need to communicate that anger. So that I need to have everybody to begin to become comfortable to saying that, oh, just go and do it, let's come together. No.
Register in the party.
Let's stop giving attention to our leaders. Let's stop sugarcoating. Let's call a spade a spade. Let us know how bad things are. How much, so that we can begin to create the kind of awareness that will lead to revolution, the kind of movement that you're talking about. Because movements are not born from a place of comfort. Movements are not born from it has to be, there must be enough, all of us, what happened to, look at NSAS. NSAS wasn't a product of, I care about what the government is doing, no. Yeah. It was because Gen Zs and young people got tired of how police is treating them. It has nothing to do with government. Yeah. But that triggered something because you have at least, you can look, every single young person can look around themselves and they've seen 2 or 3 of their friends that had some experiences in the hands of Nigerian police that is wrong. And they felt that that shouldn't be right. And then when the movement started and people started to talk about that, let's go and talk about it, there's enough momentum to take action. It was only now when people understand how the anger towards police, which is just an independent, standalone something, is now going toward the overall government efficiency, governance, and how government is working. And that is why the government of the day was smart enough to quickly tame it at that, because they know that that will have led to a regime change, that will have led to a lot of other crises, and that's why they quickly stop it there, don't let it go fast. Because if you don't, and one of the reasons why we couldn't, so we need to start getting hungry. We need to, every opportunity that we have like this, that's why I took this stance of saying that no, our political leaders are failures. And we should look at them in the face every time we have the opportunity to say it and say that you're failing our generation, you're failing the generation. And unfortunately, many of these political leaders are not even, they benefited from this country. They had scholarship to go to school. They had good health care when they were younger. But then, what are they taking? They're just all taking everything away and just depriving younger generation of what they deserve. And we have so much work, but we have nothing to show for it as a country. Nobody even, there's so much devolution around. There's no patriotism. There's no sense of let's call our leaders out. There is no sense of leadership, sense of vision that this transcends beyond me. One day, no matter how much billions you have, you will die. Your children will die. The empire that you are building will collapse because it's built upon nothing, and it must surely collapse. Then let them begin to speak to it idealism, whereby they know that you have been enabled by cook or by new. God enabled you to be a leader. And for that reason, you hold it to yourself, to God, and to your destiny to do the right thing. Even that is the only thing that we can do in our generation, and then we can hope that maybe in the future, in the next. But let's continue, let's stop trying to enable and tell them that because it's my personal, it's from my state, I can tell them, no, I am hungry. My default is anger. And I'm hoping that anger can trigger other anger, and then maybe it can lead us to where you are, which is, let's have a movement where all of us can get really angry enough to begin to say, you know what, if I die, I die. Because until we get to that point whereby, because what is happening right now, if I can find my way, I'm not affected by it. And I will not talk too much. If I can find, and in no way, some of us are already we're already lucky enough to have been, it will never get bad. And I don't think that with many of us, anybody that is right there on this table, till we will pass out of our lives together, God willing, that what are we going to eat, whether we're going to eat is a problem anymore. We've passed that stage. But there are people that they have been so conditioned to believe that the real people that are suffering from the bad leadership, that lack of idealism, that lack of vision, that whole idea that, what's the problem? What do you need as a 70-year-old who become a president of a country like this, and all you can do is just get more money, more money, more money? You deserve to die. I don't care where you're coming from. But let's hope by now, you should at least know that because you have wisdom, You have been helped. You have benefited from the government. You understand democracy. One of my chapters of my book on the promise of democracy is actually attacking Tinubu because I had so much hope on the man in terms of how the principle of democracy, because he's a born Democrat. He fought for democracy. So if by way God enabled you, because you might think that, oh, he was a better politician, he just outsmart everybody, became president. God enabled him. Because people will still do all those things now. Where is the MKO today? Yeah. He got a mandate and he still didn't get to be president because God did not permit it, not because he didn't try his best. So he has a leader who has spent so much time to fight for democracy, who spent his young time to fight, and he was in the space of where if I die, I die. Yeah. He could have died Tinubu would have died during the struggles of Nadeko and the rest of them. But he was alive to become a governor, and he became a governor, and for another almost 20 years, almost how many, 16 years, out of government, he helped people, he needed people, and he still came back into government, and all you can have 2 years later is impoverishment of his population in the name of policy. If you die, so what are you going to go to do? Where is that? That is why I'm angry that if a leader like that cannot deliver Nigeria, we are fucking gone and lost. Let's call a spade a spade. Because we should not stop. There's no other up.
Yeah, that's a great one actually. Everyone is angry, but you know, most time, the SRS is brought out of the anger, and we can see what's actually the outcome of it. So the anger and a lot of strategies need to be put in place so that their anger will not go alone. You know, so we need to be more, that's why I keep emphasizing on, you know, there should be a need, and there's a need for alliance. You know, you cannot do it alone. I cannot do it alone. As an organization, we cannot do it alone. So what if we put all those resources together, you know, with coupled with experience and the expertise and all that, and we join that resources together. You know, I know a couple of people doing the SRS that they will just donate. You know, we receive a lot of donation for that. So if we can do that, I believe we have the better system. But
thank you very much.
If not,
thank you very much. There's no better. On that note, thank you for everybody. I really appreciate everybody for taking out that time to share your depth, a deep insight, understanding, and knowledge on this topic, on how we can collectively make this country move forward, how we can hold our leaders accountable, how we can find better ways to make sure that we get a better country. And then we have, it's really been very engaging in sharing this platform with you this evening. Today is the 12th of June, 2025. It's Nigeria's Democracy Day. There's no better time to have this conversation than today, because it's Democracy Day. It's a day that has been dedicated in law to talk about democracy. And I think anybody says today, we should have immunity, a sense of, what is that thing in law that we have? No, there's the word I'm looking for. That when you, like, we are, I can't find it, it's not coming. But the point is that because it's democracy, anything that we have said today, you know what you have in the parliament, you have the right, anything you say you're protected. You know, yeah, and all of that. But it's okay, and I think that it's just important that I do agree with you, Super. I agree with almost everybody's point of view around. We will have to continue to. That's why we're having this conversation. That is why we'll continue to have the conversation. And all of us individually in our line of work, that's what we do on a daily basis. That our path is contributing in different ways to make sure that the country is better, to make sure that we can. But it's just unfortunate that we can do better, and we're hoping better. That's why the promise of democracy is rooted in that understanding that things can be better. We can deliver democracy better. We can get better results from practicing democracy, and we should just find a way and continue to have that open conversation and frank conversation to make it happen. So on that note, I will end this conversation, and thank you everyone for joining, and thank you for your time, and it's a pleasure. And again, Happy Democracy Day, Nigeria.
Happy Democracy
Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We can have a picture, and then we can.
Okay.